We watch anime.
We watch anime.
We are here, Bee and Bird, to deliver unto you yet another review of the latest episodes of whatever anime have come out this week that we're watching, and also like a whole bunch of old shows that hopefully you've heard of or are following along with us or are just listening to our descriptions, because we do a lot of summary on this show. We kind of try to make it so you can follow what we're talking about even if you are not watching the show. You can just like pretend you watched it through listening to us talk
You
about
can
it.
live vicariously through us. Just
Exactly.
pretend you've seen these shows because we've seen them.
You can decide if you want to watch them or not based on us talking about them. You know, maybe you get a few. ASE presents with $2 in a super chat. Says happy B-Day week, fam. Thank you. Oh yeah, my birthday. Oh my god, it's the 6th now. So I'm turning 32 in 2 days.
Oh my god.
You know, if you're hearing this, you want to get me a birthday gift, DM me and give me a price range, and I'll tell you what I want
Jesus
and where
fucking
to
Christ.
send it. Anyways, yeah.
Shove it up your ass.
So yeah, this is the anime podcast, and we always start with our segment, the Birds and the Beas, where we shout out our patrons and explain our bonus tiers, and also talk about whatever the fuck we were just doing in between the last show and this show that preoccupied so much of our time, besides watching anime, which is like something we would probably do a
More.
significant amount more of if we did not have a day job about it. And I have to say that the Patreon check that I received yesterday,
Ooh la
whenever,
la.
yesterday,
Thank you,
was pretty
everyone.
impressive. I was like, oh my gosh, I haven't seen this number in a while. So, you know, we also have made some money through the monetization of the channel. So yeah, thank you everybody.
And we have 2,000 subscribers now.
Yes, we are celebrating hitting 2,000 subs on the channel. Pop that, yeah, pop the
Sorry, I don't have a
cider.
nail on one of my fingers right now.
They didn't have any real acceptable champagnes at the Winco that we went to for groceries, but you know, but yeah, so we still haven't yet recorded, and with apologies, we have not recorded our third Patreon bonus episode for $5 plus patrons and backed.by supporters, backers. Anybody who gives us $5 somewhere, you know, you get access to these bonus episodes. We did Cyberpunk Edgerunners, we did Bochi the Rock, and we're working on Azoken. We will get it out this week. That is my commitment.
Commitment.
We have time. We should have time this week, I think. The biggest thing that's been a hurdle for us this past week is that we're currently staying in Olympia, Washington, which is a
great.
lovely
I like
little
it.
town. Extremely gay, very trans. There's a stretch of there's like a couple blocks of town that have like trans flags, crosswalks, and like just tons of progress flags hanging everywhere. And at the one time of day we went through and everything was open, I saw maybe the most trans women per like in one spot that I've ever seen outside of like Pride.
Oh, really?
I
How
guess.
many? Name every trans
Probably
woman.
like 15 plus.
That's quite a lot of trans
Like
women.
in the span of 30 seconds, you know. So I was pretty amazed with that. And then we are working all the way from here up to Seattle. And because of the fact that just hotel prices are brutal up here, we're staying in Olympia and like basically have a hour to 2 hour long commute to.
Well, it's
and or
almost
from
always
work.
an hour there, but
Yeah.
traffic out of Seattle
Gets crazy
is
quick.
insane.
Yeah, and it's way earlier than like even if we get off like work early, the traffic is still bad enough that it's almost 2 hours to get home. So That's the biggest thing that's been preventing us from getting to watch anime, because we also, like, we don't have a kitchen. We are in a hotel. So every day it's like, what are we going to find for food? Where are we going to go? Lately we've been walking to places, which is in itself exhausting. And we've been attacked by the Eepee, our mortal nemesis that we discussed on the previous episode. The Eepee is a little pink triceratops that sleeps, and it eats your limbs. You can find a picture of Bird being eaten by the Eepee on our Discord. Shout out the Discord. I'm sad I didn't get to spend more time in there this week, because it's a very nice place for me. I've spent a lot of time on Twitter over the years, and like ever since transitioning, a big part of my Twitter usage has just been like looking at trans people, like just getting an excuse to see other trans people with maybe a similar sense of humor or just a cool aesthetic, or like, you know, because in my day-to-day life I don't run into lots of trans people, and that's changed a little bit in recent times where I've met some and made some friends, but like or just seen them out and about in, you know, places like here in Seattle or Portland, where there's just a lot more trans people. But like you know, it's like it's difficult to feel like like the same kind of connection to people who don't have that experience that I do to people who do. And so to see how many particularly trans girls have collected into our Discord server to talk about anime and about whatever they're going through at the moment, I don't know. It's nice. It makes me wish I could share more, like had time to share more, so that I could spark even more of that conversation or give back the feelings I'm getting from like seeing other people talking there all the time. But it's nice that some people are hanging out, you know. So shout out everybody in the Discord. Yeah. All right. The Patreon. If you support us for $10 or more, we shout out your name in every single episode of this show.
Every single one.
On Back.buy, we have one person who has consistently given us $10 a month. That is True Fox 1. Shout out. And on Patreon, do you want to read any of these, or should I blast through them myself?
Ooh, I did them last time, but blast through sounds enticing.
All right, Abby K, Ice Bear,
Dylan,
Devin Hall, Last Esses,
M2,
Hidden Music Island, Anathemi Bedesu,
Susu2,
and Zero
Soon
Game. Yeah, all right. All those people, shout out, thank you. We will eventually be creating a $15 tier for the We Read Manga bonus episodes podcast. I read all the first volumes of manga. Bird hasn't had time yet, so you know we're gonna figure out how doable that podcast really is before we're actually able to launch it. But we will not be in the hell of working for a day job forever. We're
soon we'll have a night job.
There's a light at the end of the tunnel of like a point at which we might finish work or have enough money to stop doing that and do this. You know, it all depends on how much we can squeeze this. Like, obviously, we're not going to make more money at a time where I can't even get the podcast edited consistently, much less get more bonus episodes out to make more money from people who are already fans of the show. So, you know, I kind of hope it just continues to grow naturally. But that's hard to do unless we can make more time for it. So, as the regular work clears up, you know, we'll be able to spend more time on the show itself, but we're still in the jobber era of the We Watch Anime podcast, the EP attack era. All right.
I hope someday we get to do one of these from like a campground. I don't know where though, because most campgrounds have such shit reception.
It's true. Can you get up closer?
Oh, this chair sucks. Its back is so far back.
Yeah, it's not the greatest. Do you want to trade chairs with me?
Yeah, sure.
All right, we're gonna do a chair trade. this is the kind of thing that I would edit out of an edited version of this podcast. So hopefully it doesn't take an eternity for that to happen. But I can't make any promises. The schedule has been very tight lately. Admittedly, we did take some time out of that to go see Barbie, but it was worth it. Really good movie. Do recommend. If you haven't seen it or you haven't been interested, nobody's told you that it's good. It's good stuff.
Apparently, YMS thinks it's better than Oppenheimer.
I would believe. I mean, I'm not nearly as interested to see Oppenheimer as I was to see Barbie, based on just.
I mean, I still want to see Oppenheimer.
My taste in movies and what I expect. I mean, Barbie was way more surreal than I expected it to be.
Yeah.
And a lot, like, looser and more, like, fourth wall doesn't exist. You know. Also, like, more Barbie deep. Like, I should have expected it to have a lot of, like, Barbie deep lore reference type material. But I just. Because I don't know anything about Barbie, it was like, oh yeah, I guess this is what it must. I guess this is, if you just like literally interpreted all of the stuff that's existed in that universe, you know, this would make sense. Dempa Apple says Oppenheimer was pretty quality, yet to see Barbie. I mean, Quinn, friend of the show, frequent collaborator, saw both movies and said that they were both 10 out of 10, but Barbie was just more of a 10 out of 10. Like, you know, Oppenheimer's like a movie that's hard to find fault with, but not really necessarily exciting the way that Barbie is. It's just fucking whacked out. I compared it to a Takashi Miike film. It's not as like violent or disturbed as most of his movies are, but like his wacky like costume hero movies and such.
It's like if the Lego movie could talk about vaginas.
Yeah. Also, maybe just like the most feminist movie I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Like, to have that wide of a release and appeal, you know?
Oh, it was wonderful. I had one really great time. Trans Barbie was fun.
I'm going to have a feminist take down on one episode of one of these anime we're going to talk about today. But not until way later in this podcast. So we'll leave that as a mystery. You'll find out when we get there.
Feminist take. Oh shit.
All right, we're like 13 minutes in. Let's just go for it. It's time to talk about these anime. We're gonna start with Jujutsu Kaisen.
This was a fun
Season
episode.
2. This was a good one. This was the first one where I felt like everything kind of. Like, I understand the bridging the gap between this and the first season, and how this character became that character.
How both of these characters became the characters.
Yeah, like, this is literally the end of the backstory arc, and, like, the last, you know, I mean, it's pretty much the consequences of what happened in the last 4 episodes. Like, those were all set up so that this episode could happen, pretty much. And while I don't think it's, like, necessarily amazing, because some of the conversations later in the episode, I don't know, I don't care about everything that's being said. It is interesting, and, like, with the first season of Jujutsu Kaisen, Nino has said, I didn't get any text from him based on last week, I don't know if he heard it yet, but I would believe that Jujutsu Kaisen 0 is a better starting point for the story, not only because it is literally the original starting point for the story, it sounds like, but that, like, a lot of thought seems like it went into the world and backstory and all that kind of elements of Jujutsu Kaisen, but, like, into how it was going to be a, like, long-running story and what was going to happen in each arc. It has never felt as, like, considered to me, where, like, the first arc of the first season, I didn't really care about the villain or his story, and when it wrapped up, I was kind of surprised. I was like, oh, okay, thank God that's over, you know? And then the second arc suddenly introduces a ton of new characters, and it's just like a big traditional battle shonen structure thing, and it made way more sense to me immediately, but it wasn't necessarily, like, I pretty much forgot everything that happens, like, all the powers, all the characters that introduced, like, I, over your shoulder, saw you rewatch, like, you know, watching that part of the show, and was like, oh, fuck, I forgot about all this shit. You know, I forgot there's a panda. I forgot there's like a
I love
robot
Panda.
guy. There's a ton of shit. Yeah, the one that's like a guy in a like he's very little of his body remains, so he's in like a robot or something to that effect. I think his name is literally Robot.
Thinking of Demon Slayer.
No, this happens in Jujutsu Kaisen. Tell me in the chat if I'm like making something up, but like, but yeah, like the fact that this feels like a more coherent, thought out narrative of like this author had an idea of like
this was Jujutsu Kaisen. Weird.
Yeah. Like there's going to be these two rivals who, because of the way that they differently like develop in their growth as sorcerers, end up going down radically different paths of like one becomes like the Jesus of sorcerers and the other becomes the Jesus of sorcerers, but in a dark way. So like they're both it's like, I don't know, a Sith versus Jedi kind of thing or something. Does it sound right to you?
I mean, look, there's not really like clear.
Yeah, they're telling us that there is a robot guy. Bird figured it out.
What I mean to say, cursed energy is not really like defined to be good in any way that I can tell. It's pretty much a bad thing.
Well, it seems like everybody has cursed energy.
Yeah.
As established. All right, so getting into this episode directly.
We
First
start
of all,
off with Gojo. He throws up an eraser and a pencil, and then they just float around his head.
Well, they throw it at him, right? Like, weren't they trying to fuck with him and prank him? And he's just like, haha, I'm invincible. I can do everything. And he goes on this like long rant about how his powers work. This shot, I think, is interesting. So people had pointed out to me before watching this episode that it had really unique storyboards and like, which it's hard to like define what that means, but because the storyboard is just a rough drawing of what each image is going to look like, but that's essentially where shot composition is decided in doing anime. Like that roughly tells you where the characters are going to be. That gets imitated in the final draft, and depending on how complete those storyboards are, might indicate how well the other people on the team are able to interpret them. But like this episode, there's all these really unique, weird shot compositions. Even this one, not as distinct as some of the others, but I've never really seen a camera placed at this angle before, and it's very telling that there's a lot of emphasis on how far away Gojo is all of a sudden. Like, him unlocking the god power has made him feel like unfathomably distant, which is a good metaphor for what his power literally does.
They take a lot of time to explain this, or rather emphasize this metaphor, where it's just Geto monologuing in the narration going, oh man, he does all his missions alone now, and so I do all my missions alone, and I'm so lonely, and I wish I had my buddy still.
It's just like, as soon as he unlocked this power, he became
with Gojo
a million miles away.
Explaining his powers, he explains that like his brain is constantly frying and he's constantly recreating it or something like that.
I'm glad you reminded me of that, because it really does just sound like he's doing acid all the time.
DMT.
Or DMT, or like some kind of psychedelic drug. Just as somebody who's done acid a number of times, I always described it as being like taking a rare candy, like in Pokemon, where you do feel almost a sense of like an unlocked understanding that some of which stays with you, like even if it's not like maybe something you're enacting all the time. Like, I don't know, every time maybe not every time, but like some of the times I've done heavy psychedelics, I feel like I understand something that changes the way that I'm going to approach life from that point forward, even if it's very subtle. Just feels like a little level up in self-understanding. And Gojo is just like doing that deliberately all day, all the time, because he can. and it's just making him stronger and stronger and stronger. So it's like a multiplication of how far away he's getting in power.
He's limitless. He's infinite. He's
OPAF is what he is. So yeah, because of the fact that he can now do everything by himself, well, I mean, Geto can kind of do everything by himself.
Well, he can. He's fine.
He's not fine. The man is not okay.
I mean, sorry, let me rephrase. He's capable.
He is capable, but he is dying inside, and he reminds us that eating cursed spirits tastes like, really bad.
Cursed spirits taste like eating a rag that you've used to clean up shit and vomit.
He repeats it from like the first episode. It's like it's like the first thing in the first episode, right? Is him saying that. So yeah,
he's not having a good time.
This guy, most of the first half of this episode is just to emphasize like how bad Geto feels about continuing to do this line of work when he's not really around his friends.
What's the end game?
What's
the point?
There's no really time to sleep. There's just always more curses. It's constant violence. He doesn't really care about the people he's protecting. It's just like a lot of good reasons. Maybe this job is not for him anymore.
All your friends are dying.
But, you know, some people quit their job and some people turn into a cult leader. I can relate. But here's some man service. Here's Geto just...
They sure do show him in the shower.
You know, he's thinking about how bad of a time he's having while looking real nice. Nice back. Here's what he looks like from the front. They show this face, just kind of zooming in on it, for like a good 30 seconds of him just looking really, really done. It's effective. It works. I was like, this guy's not alright.
That's pretty clear through most of this episode.
It's happening. It is all happening. So then we have this bizarre set of encounters. Geto is just like, I don't know, at HQ or whatever.
Yeah, so Geto's hanging out with MASH here. But no, he's hanging out with Bullcut.
I miss MASH-ll.
Me too.
I wish it was back.
So he's just kind of, oh man, life is so hard, Bullcut. How do you go on? Like, do you ever struggle being a Jujutsu sorcerer?
Yeah.
And Bullcut's basically just like,
I don't think.
I don't care. Yeah.
I don't. I just do. It feels nice that I can do something. And he's like, you know what? That's cool, man. Seeing them next to each other, it's really just the juxtaposition to see like how full of life this newbie is, and how like just absolutely, like Geto is like telling him like, yeah, no, I feel like shit. He's basically
wake up at 11:30
feeling like a bag of shit. Yeah, he is at exactly that. I am not having a good day. Like,
what did they do to us?
Yeah.
So anyway, this blonde lady shows up, and I think what does she lead with?
I think she's training this kid or something, or he's like a underling of her. She's related somehow. They know each other.
I believe she leads with something to the effect of, "Hey, are you into tall women?" Because she is a tall woman.
No, she just says, "What type of woman do you like?" And the other guy gives an answer. Geto never does. But basically, she skedaddles this kid and sits down to have a lengthy conversation with Geto about their philosophies of why they are doing this job.
Well, specifically, she's trying to bring him in on her big project. Because she comes up and Geto she's like, "Oh, surely you must know who I am." And Geto goes, I mean, he like feigns ignorance, and then she explains a whole bunch. Then Geto goes, "Oh yeah, you're that lady that sits around and doesn't do anything, and everyone wants to get rid of."
Yeah,
which is fun. But so her whole thing is she wants to, what is it? Eliminate cursed energy.
Kill Me says she's Toto's master, nothing to do with Bullcut. I guess he had just instantly decided she was, because he sees her and he's like, "I'm a good judge of character. This girl's all right." I had thought that he was implying he had like hung out with her maybe earlier that day or something.
I remember
but
Toto.
I guess he literally was just basing that on first glance.
Red-haired guy's best friend.
Oh
Big,
yeah,
strong,
this
buff
guy.
man.
Yeah, he's a cool guy. I think.
He was fun. I liked him.
Everything in the show is fun. Do I remember who they are or what it means? Not usually. But I think this is probably to me the most memorable episode of Jujutsu Kaisen because it made it so very clear why things were happening.
Yeah.
In a way that never has I felt that way before. This woman, and it's funny how between this show and Mushoku Tensei, there are two different types of very banal scenes of revelation. This show does it a lot better. This show has scenes that are like really dramatic, really intense, but then it'll have scenes that are like calm and it's just characters having a conversation, but they drop these unexpected bombshells of just having like whacked out opinions or goals that really they matter because this woman is about to decide this man's fate.
Yeah. She's just gonna give him a bunch of ideas.
Yeah, it's literally just a regular conversation you might have between pals that convinces you to become an evil cult leader. So she's like, I want to create a world where cursed spirits aren't born because cursed energy just comes from like human hate
struggle
or whatever.
Yeah.
So
negative emotions.
There's two possibilities here. We could eliminate all curses or teach everybody to manage cursed energy such that they never attract curses.
No, yeah, something like that.
And so she believes the first thing is possible and was working towards that. But doesn't think the second thing is possible. And part of why she doesn't think it's possible is that the guy they killed in the last episode, Megumi's dad...
Yeah. His heavenly pact made it so that he has no cursed energy at all.
And he's the only person she's ever heard of having no cursed energy. He was one of a kind, so the fact that they lost him and they can't study him, she's like, I don't know if we could ever teach people to manage cursed energy because that was the only guy who ever knew how to do it, like on that level. So, maybe we got to go back to the plan of kill all the curses. And she's like, it might be possible.
No, kill all the humans.
Well, no, she says kill all the curses. He says, well, the easiest way to kill all the curses would be to kill anybody who can't learn how to manipulate cursed energy. Which basically means anybody who's not a sorcerer. Being able to manipulate cursed energy makes you a sorcerer, right? I think?
Yeah, yes.
This is all shit I'm just now finally understanding because of this conversation. That I probably should have already known about the story. But, so he's like, okay, so if we kill everybody who can't manage cursed energy, then we won't have to worry about curses. Everybody will be like me, And she's like, that might work. Like, that might be the best way to get rid of curses.
I think she says it would be the easiest way.
Yeah, it would be the easiest way. So,
our boy hears that and goes, easy.
Now, she also presents this. She says, if you force people to adapt into sorcerers as a survival strategy, and then she compares this to how birds evolved to fly, that's like millions of years of evolution. Like, is he personally supposed to keep
he doesn't have Gojo's limitless ability, which I assume will keep him alive forever.
The anime series Shinsekai Yori is about how a tenth of the planet suddenly develops psychic powers, and everybody who's emotionally out of control is like a nuclear bomb, and so they just annihilate 90% of the planet in a manic state or whatever. And so all of society becomes specifically about trying to keep people placated, and if they have psychic powers, really make sure they don't use them.
I see.
I feel like that's what he's trying to build. That's what he wants the world to become, is Shinsekai Yori, which is a very bad show.
So it's kind of like the melancholy of Haruhi Suzumiya, because You know, like if Haruhi Suzumiya gets really upset, she could do that to the world or something. I don't know. You've never really explained that show to me. Could you please?
Last Essa says the way she talks about evolution makes me think she is a sorcerer Naziist. I mean, she literally inspires him to become exactly that. He's Magneto. He is the Magneto of sorcerers.
He's in charge of a bunch of like regular people that aren't sorcerers.
Sure, but he's trying to make them into sorcerers. Like, he wants everybody to either be a sorcerer or be dead. Magneto is like, you're either a mutant or you're dead. Mutant is slightly more of a birthright thing, but like not everybody could adapt to being a sorcerer. So like he's basically like, you're either the right type of person or you're fucking gone, you know? So yeah, he is absolutely a eugenicist, evil guy with bad intentions that this woman pretty much just gave him. She was just like, yeah.
She didn't do it on purpose.
I mean, it might, like, hey, I want to get rid of curses. If you got an idea that might work, go for it. I don't know if mine's going to work.
She doesn't say go for it. She's asking him to work.
She didn't tell him not to do it.
But so anyway, Geto gets sent on some kind of mission, or he has to deal with two children that I wasn't clear on exactly what they did.
There's sort of like a short montage of him doing missions, I think.
Yeah.
And like they just keep getting worse, and he keeps hating people more and more.
Oh, he sees Bowl-Cut from earlier dead.
Oh, he died. I didn't even notice that. I totally missed that detail, but that makes sense. That's a very cyber. I thought he was gonna get cyberpunked.
Yeah.
So I'm surprised I missed that happening. Ooh. But my immediate thought was, oh, this is like that guy who hit the mine in Cyberpunk.
Yeah.
But yeah, which we talk about in our bonus episode. You can go, if you're a $5 plus patron or backer on back.buy. This is for the people who don't listen to our opening segment and just skip to where the anime discussion starts. We talk about Cyberpunk. And it's similar to this. It's a good show. Pay us money to hear us talk about it. Also watch it. It's only 10 episodes.
But so anyway, after the Geto montage of him doing like boring missions, he gets sent out on a mission, I think to his hometown or something. Maybe he's just visiting his hometown. Yeah, I believe
that's the idea.
And there's two kids who have some kind of cursed energy manipulation who have scared these two old people. And the two old people just kind of
caged them and have clearly beaten them up.
And are racist in general. And Geto's just like getting more and more upset. And he says, hey, can I talk to you guys outside? And then he burns them and I assume most of the village down.
He burns the whole village down. He kills everybody in town except for the children who he takes on as his like disciples. I assume they probably grow up to be in the main storyline. Just because like he still has them around at the end of this arc.
Yeah.
But this is the end of his soul blackening. And I mean it's basically just fulfilling the promise of
beginning of his soul blackening. It's going to continue to get blacker,
sure. This is where like I mean we have to remember even before Blonde Girl suggested this to him, Gojo also, like, at the end of the last episode, literally was like, what if we murdered all these people? He's just doing it. He's just like, why didn't we?
Except Geto ends up taking control of all those people.
Yeah, so before that happens, we start to see him transforming into the design that he had in the original show, and I was finally like, oh, I do remember who this guy turns into. Like, as soon as I saw the hair, I was like, oh, the guy with the hair. He's just got differently cool hair in this version.
But so they cut to a shot of, like, a newspaper that basically says, Geto's hometown was burned down and his parents were killed and they used energy tracing to trace it back to Geto. It's him, and so he's on the run. Gojo reads this and is like, oh my god. The girl that works with them meets up with Geto, and basically they talk, and Geto says, "Yep, I did it. Sorry,
Yeah.
I did it. Whoops.
Not sorry.
Sorry, not sorry."
They meet up in like the middle of town, surrounded by people. This scene was unnerving to me in particular because there's this anime called Ninja Resurrection. I don't recommend it necessarily unless you're really into fucked up, weird, dark 90s OVAs. But like it ends with this scene where like a resurrected Lucifer and 3 like Dukes of Hell or whatever are in a bunch of crowds in the streets of Tokyo, and they just start carving through like massive swaths of people. And I was like half expecting this guy to start doing that. Yeah, kind of like Omni-Man. Just,
the train.
Not the same way exactly, but like more like whipping through them, just like whoosh, people get whipped in half. But and you can feel that coming off of, like you feel the sense of there's all these people around and this guy is an immediate threat to all of them, and he's just kind of walking amongst them, like fading in and out of the crowd mysteriously. It's a cool visual that they got going.
I think he met them in a public place so that they all couldn't use Jujutsu.
Yeah, so that like everyone around is a clear blockage.
Yeah, exactly.
Better word.
But so anyway, I assume the girl goes back and talks to Gojo, and so Gojo goes out to find Geto and confronts him, and they have a conversation standing from about like 30 feet away from each other, in like crowded traffic, foot traffic. It's kind of strange. It's not my ideal venue for a conversation, but so they spend, I don't know, 2-3 minutes yelling at each other in the middle of a bunch of people walking around about jujutsu and all kinds of like wizardy stuff. And, it's important and plot heavy, but the whole time
Geto says some bullshit.
Yeah, he does. The whole time I was just thinking like, Gojo, aren't these people not supposed to know about any of this? There's a lot of people.
Being a little loud. I think they were taking some artistic liberty with the volume of the conversation versus the crowd. It's Tokyo. Nobody's paying attention to what's going on in the streets, I guess. They're just shouting gibberish, so they're just schizos in the street or whatever.
It was a cool shot.
But, yeah, I was a little annoyed when Geto started. I mean, he's a villain, so whatever. He's allowed to have bad logic, so it's not, like, that annoying. But he just starts going on about, like, what if I was you? Like, does you being you make you you? Or is it that being you makes you you? If I was you, would I be you? Or would only you be you? We're gonna find out. It's like, God, fuck you, shoot yourself, please. But of course, Gojo cannot bring himself to murk his friend, even though he knows he should do it right then. He's like thinking, like, I should probably kill this guy, but he can't do it. And
that guy's got big like Itachi energy, Killed his whole clan. He's just kind of an asshole that you can't really kill. He's just around doing bad shit all the time.
I never actually got far enough into Naruto to have Itachi explained. I just know he killed everybody, and Sasuke's really upset about it.
He's just kind of an asshole.
So yeah, this guy's like, why didn't you stop him? And he's like, you're really gonna ask me that? And he's like, yeah, that was dumb of me. So they're just kind of
I do
sad.
believe Gojo could have killed him.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
He this guy just asked him why he didn't.
Oh,
he's
sure,
like,
sure.
What the like? Obviously, I couldn't do it. This was my favorite scene in the episode. So yeah, Geto takes over the cult building where the girl had been sacrificed.
Right before he goes out on stage, he's got the 2 little children he saved backstage with him, and he's in this outfit. And the kids go, "Are you sure you're gonna go out like that? That outfit's a little garish." And he goes, "You've got to impress them," or something like that. And he just walks out. So this is the religious group that killed that girl, or hired Toji to kill that girl.
Yeah.
So Geto goes out and just goes, "Hey, how's it going, motherfuckers? I am the one in charge now. Thank you. And it just cuts to like a title card just going, many objected. And Geto goes, oh, that's unfortunate. Hey, the president, why don't you come stand up here? So the president stands up here and then gets smushed by whatever the hell this thing is.
It's like the way this scene is paced is fucking perfect, because it cuts from him doing like this gesture where he's kind of looking up with his arm up, and he's like, you, come over here. And all you see of this character who comes on stage is like maybe 2 frames of their face before is crushed in, like 7 or 8 frames of the face just being demolished, and then cut straight to this shot of like maybe 2 frames of this thing falling and the blood splattering, but like mostly you just see this after effect, which looks fucking awesome. It was one of those oh shit type of moments, like damn, especially because nothing violent had happened through this whole episode really. Like there were implications of violence. You saw some like death or some blood seeping out of doors or things like that, but there was not like
they were mostly like dreams.
Yeah. And this is really dark and obviously very villainous. Pretty fucking intense for shonen manga, actually, I must say. So, yeah.
It's a good move.
Impressive, cool, fun. And, yeah, so...
Oh, hang on real quick. At some point, while we're still in the past, or well, I guess we are still in the past, we're just about to flip. But before this in the past... Gojo gets told that another star vessel or whatever, another vessel like that girl has already been born, so it's fine, it doesn't matter, everything's cool.
So Gojo just kind of finds Megumi, a child, and is like, hey, your dad,
got any grapes?
You don't know about him, but he was like a big shot guy. He's from like a big sorcerer family. He had all these powers, and also I killed him. And as he's saying I killed him, Megumi cuts him off and is like, I don't fucking care. The guy abandoned me. I got this little girl that I'm friends with that I care about, and everything else does not matter to me, and fuck it. And Gojo's like, hey, what if you became a sorcerer though? You'd be cool. And he's like, will that ensure a good future for my girl? And he goes, no, absolutely not. But consider it. And Megumi fucks off. And then cut to, Gojo wakes up.
Gojo wakes up from a nap and they go, hey, don't fucking fall asleep after summoning us, saying it's important.
We're in the present again. Oh my god. We're back where the story... We're picking up where we left off at the end of season 1 that both of us have totally seen.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you will have time to finish it before the story continues. I don't know about me. Last week when I was pulling clips for the show, you watched all of the new Record of Ragnarok release.
I skipped through a lot of it.
Well, fair enough. How was that?
I skipped through a lot of it. There was some fun stuff. Buddha's cool.
Alright, well, that's it for Jujutsu Kaisen. Strong episode this week. I kind of think the story might be interesting.
I think I might be interested
story
in
for the
it
first
now.
time ever.
There'll be 2
good job.
recaps for both the movie and the first season. Why not watch and cover those?
We could do that. You say will be, like, I assume you mean there. I need my arm to be here and you to not be touching my arm for a moment so I can move this thing around. It's time for Revolutionary Girl Utena.
We love Mickey. We love Mickey.
We love Mickey. This is definitely my favorite show that we are covering right now. Aside from the fact that it's a show I've seen a few times and I've been a fan of for a long time, rewatching it, the first few times I watched the show, I was young enough that I barely understood what it was trying to say, because it is subtle in a way that very few anime are. And it's not that it's all the way subtle. Like, there's a lot of stuff that it's beating you over the fucking head with.
Yeah.
Like, the broad stuff, very much so, especially the first couple episodes.
You can call them women, Beatrice. You shouldn't call them broads.
As we dive into stuff like this, there's a lot of stuff where it's like very clear what's going on, and then there's a lot of mystery. This episode answers a lot of questions about Miki that were raised by the previous episode, while also raising new questions, that make you really curious about these characters and where the story is going and how they're going to be built on. I just think this show is better written than anything else we're watching, and I think the structure does it a lot of favors, that they found a way to like conveniently get the episodes out to 24 minutes without having to necessarily write a 24-minute story every episode. But like everything that is there, the meat that's on the story is like incredibly succulent is the best way I can put it. So this episode opens with two of our student council members, Miki and Juri, having a sword fight. They're fencing. They're both apparently like national level competitive sword fighters. They're considered amazing. Now, also remember, Juri is like 18. She's a senior. She's like the oldest member of the cast. And Miki is like 12 or 13 or something like that. I think 13.
13, I believe, yes.
Definitely in middle school. Which him and Utena, like he's an underclassman to Utena and Anthe, but I think they are both in middle school also. But this is like a combined middle and high school. I think it's actually an elementary school as well. I think there's a character who gets introduced who's in the elementary school later.
Do they duel?
Yes, they do.
I figured they had to. You know, like, because in Mirai Nikki, there's the 3-year-old with the picture book.
God, I never got that far into Mirai Nikki.
Oh, okay, let me take a moment to
No.
We got
a lot of Utena to get through.
So in Mirai Nikki, the idea is every single character is in a contest, and the edge each character has in the contest is a diary that tells the future. For most people, it's a cell phone. But there are some special cases. Like for this, I think it's probably like a 7-year-old, really. I don't remember. Maybe it is really a 4-year-old. But it's like a picture book. Or it's not, it's like a book, but it only has like 3 frames of action per day, I think, or something. Or no. Morning, lunch, and dinner.
Okay, I see.
And so it's like, it's 3 things or something like that are going to happen in the morning, at lunch, and at dinner. And so that's what he's got to work with. So he can set up like weird elaborate traps, but he can't prepare for a lot.
He's a baby genius.
Yeah.
Just like Miki, who's also a baby genius, as we're going to learn in this episode. Wow, I tied it back. Okay. So Miki actually beats Yuri in this fight. I'm just going to call her Yuri because I don't know exactly how I'm supposed to pronounce her name, but she's a lesbian. So, you know, it is what it is. Miki beats her for the first time ever, and she attributes this to his having found some kind of new inspiration of whoever it is that he graded the papers of. She doesn't know who that is yet. And he's like, I'm still not perfect yet. I still have a ways to go. And she says, it's your imperfection that makes you great. She says, you have the strength of purity. I think this is interesting because... Miki being the youngest character, he has been presented as inexperienced, deliberately very virginal, uptight. Shinji, I do think he does have a lot of Shinji's traits, because Shinji is kind of uptight when he's more expressive, but Miki doesn't have that dissociative, like, giving up tendency. He is very driven, which Shinji lacks.
That is true.
But, He's completely determined to be better, to get back something that he feels he lost that made him great once, which is just simply the presence of someone else, and we're going to learn about that as we go. So this is Anthe's garden, the little I don't know how you describe it. It's in like a greenhouse, I guess.
Man, I like Revolutionary Girl Utena a lot, but, like, I wish it didn't rip off Witch from Mercury so often.
Yeah, Witch from Mercury literally did this same concept, but
Mirina has a garden.
But yeah, Anthe, she's been tending the garden, and Miki meets her in there. So we'll eventually learn that the song that she's been performing, "The Sunlit Garden," is based on Miki's memories of playing piano in a sunlit garden.
No, I think it's literally he wrote the song.
Oh yeah, that's
okay.
what I mean. It's based on his memories of like the song is about being in a sunlit garden, was written in a sunlit garden, and Anthe probably relates to the song because she also works in a sunlit garden. And so when Miki sees her here, he's just immediately nostalgic for the exact feelings that created that song, which he's going to get into when they're at the piano. This conversation is really interesting because he's like, yeah, me and my sister wrote that song. And Utena's like,
you wrote it? That's famous.
Like, I know this song. Everybody knows this song.
And then Mickey goes, yeah, let me dump a bunch of exposition on you real quick. Are you ready for about 5 to 6 minutes of flashback?
Of my life story. Yeah, Miki, so, turns out, when Miki and his sister were young, they would sit together and play piano in the garden. And Miki thought this was the absolute time of his life, and when adults heard them play, they were blown away. Everybody just thought they were fucking amazing together. And so, they eventually got organized to do a concert, and she didn't want to do it. This image is perhaps the most profound explanation of how she feels about the situation. Bird in a cage. This
Where?
Distant spot on my range.
I don't see a cage.
Still just a bird in a cage.
I don't like that phrase.
The bird in a cage.
No, stop it. I don't like that phrase.
So, she didn't want to do it. He pressured her into it, and then on the night of the show, he got sick, and she had to go on alone. She freaked out and bombed it, and never played piano again.
The brother even went so far as to say something like, I will always be there for you anytime you need me, or something like that.
And then failed that.
Yeah.
So he's obsessed with getting back to these times when him and his sister were playing piano. His twin sister, I should also mention.
Glory days.
Glory days. Imagine peaking when you're 7. Oof. So, as they're all hanging out at the piano, Anthe is insisting on the fact that she's, Utena's wife again. And Utena's just like, I don't like this. I can't abide by a system where someone's personal freedom is determined by these rules. Yeah. And Miki overhears this. Yeah, he's like, you know what? She's fucking right. So he goes to the student council and is like, you know what?
We should disband this whole silly contest.
Yeah,
no more
is
of this.
Dumb.
Anthe deserves rights. And the student council will just kind of laugh at him and go, shut up, idiot.
Well, they're like, well, if that's how you feel, win. Like, if you want to be able to control her destiny, you gotta beat us all, but, like, we're in it to win it. We want this power of Neos shit. So, then he's walking down the hall, entering the music room, and who should be popping out of it but his twin sister? And he does not seem to be interested in actually talking to her at all.
No,
he's very avoidant of her.
And she seems not cool, not very nice.
Well, she's kind of like bullying him because of the fact that he's acting like she doesn't exist.
Yeah.
But also, she slyly is like putting her skirt back on and fixing her tie. What was she doing in this room? And who was she doing it with? Oh my god, she was banging Toga.
You didn't do the man service in this screenshot? There's a screenshot, or rather there's a shot of him with just like his jacket all open.
I wanted him saying, your sister is as cute as you are, because he's also trying to get into Miki's pants, is what I took from this line. He wants both. He wants the set. He wants to have had the set.
Yeah, I mean, It'd be nice to sleep with twins, but triples is best.
Triples is the best. That's fucking hilarious. So yeah, Toga, he clearly did this on purpose. He wanted to demonstrate, because like, basically he's trying to encourage Miki to go fight in the duels. He wants him to go fight for Anthy, and he literally fucks his sister on the piano that Miki plays every day, just in order to send him the message, like, if you don't protect the things that you're trying to take care of, someone's going to sweep in and take it from you. Now, I know you don't care about your slut sister anymore because she won't play piano with you, but I just wanted to show you, what's going to happen if you don't go in and try to, take Anthy for yourself. So, yeah, a little bit of tough love.
Is it love?
He's gonna do stuff like this a lot, actually, later in the series.
Also, when Mickey walks into the room with what's red-haired guy's name?
Toga.
When Mickey walks into the room with Toga in it, and he like connects the dots of what just happened, it plays like a negative music sting and cuts to sheet music like it had a bunch in the last episode.
And it also does that when he says, "Do it," only the person who controls the bride can do what they want with her. And we remember, way back in episode 1, he heard him say about Saionji that you could do what you want. And he, like, under his breath was like, "Do what you want." And, Juri teased him about it. So it's a line he's been hung up on for the whole show of, like, he's really afraid of the idea of someone else being able to control Anthy. And he thinks that as long as he's got the control, ultimately she will be free to do whatever she wants because he's not going to try to control her. But the reason he wants her to be able to do whatever she wants is because he thinks, at least, what she wants to do is play piano. And as long as she wants to play piano, she might be his muse.
Well, one of the things she wants to do is play piano.
She likes doing it.
Anthy has a very diverse cabinet of hobbies.
She will pretty much do anything. She does have a very large cabinet. We're gonna see her do all kinds of wacky, fun things in this show. But this is an interesting sequence. So basically, this is just Toga saying the same things again, but it's Miki remembering Toga say those things. And the way he remembers it is all these ridiculously erotic shots of Toga, like, in a bedspread with his shirt open, like, laying on his back, like, arms, like...
Is that not what happened?
More erotic than it actually was, which I think tells us something about Miki and the way that he views Toga as, like, just this fucking sex demigod of some kind, which is not unfair. He does fuck almost everybody in this fucking school. We get our shadow puppet scene. We're leading up to the duel.
Yes,
Miki challenges Utena. In this one, it's like a pirate captain with one, rowboater, and he's like, "Yeah, we're going off to find the treasures." And this person says, "Well, what about the thing you really want?" And the captain's just like, "Thing I really want?" And just kind of gets lost in thought.
And then they
know
sink.
what that is. What is the thing you really want? Does Miki understand what he really wants? Definitely not. He just, as he's fighting, he's just looking at Anthy and thinking, like, just look at her. She clearly wants to be free. I've got to do this. This is a noble purpose. Now, I think what Miki's really missing here is Utena has not taken any of Anthy's freedom.
Yeah, no, he should have, like, learned from the conversation earlier in the episode, like, Utena really doesn't care about any of this.
She's the one who gave him the idea of Anthy having personal freedom. He literally overheard her saying it. She's
typical
the one
man
in charge.
Thinks he can do it better.
Just, well, his fear is that, because he literally says to Anthy at one point, like, if Utena told you to stop playing piano, would you? And Anthy says, of course. As the Rose Bride, I have to do whatever they tell me. So he's just afraid, well, if someone else has control, they might tell her to stop playing piano.
He's trying to prevent heartbreak.
Yes, but it's his own heartbreak, yeah. And not really to do with Anthy, where, again, Utena already is arguing against the system, already doesn't want to make Anthy do anything, and isn't even expecting her to do anything specific. So she's obviously the one who Anthy's going to root for, and the way he loses is just simply Anthy calls out, like, yeah, Utena, kick his ass, and he's just like, what? Done.
Yeah. It was a fun fight, though.
It was fun. It had some cool colors and stuff. And now he's just left wondering, why can't I find someone to be my shining thing?
Not enough lube on the ass.
Jesus Christ. I think for us, it's maybe obvious to say, like, Miki just needs to like himself. He needs to not project it onto somebody else. He attributes all of basically everything that was good about his past, he attributes to the fact that he was doing it with his sister. But what we will learn from his sister is that she was never good at piano at all.
Or at least she says that.
Well, because her friend is listening to her play and is like, how were you ever good at piano? Like, you suck. And she's like, I wasn't. I would just play, and my brother is such a genius that no matter what I was playing, he could match it and make it sound good. So she's just kind of playing clunky piano, and to him, it's just an excuse to hang out with his sister. But, like, because of the fact that his piano playing is so good. Now, the only reason she started playing with him is that a boy next door, like, gave her a letter saying, like, oh, I love to hear your piano playing. And she's like, it wasn't even me who had been playing, but once I started, you know, people started thinking we were this amazing duo. And then, you know, one thing leads to another. And then after that show, I never wanted to play again. But, like, Miki...
Which show?
The show that she had to do by herself. So, from her perspective, she basically, from the beginning, was just getting dragged into something that she never really cared about. And, you know, was just Miki's obsessive hobby that he, you know, attributes her to, like, his reason for doing it. Like, oh, I can excuse myself to play piano to a perfectionist level because of the fact that I'm playing with somebody who I care about. Or, like, you know, just having someone who inspires him makes him feel like it's all justified, whatever he's doing, as opposed to just appreciating the fact that he is just good, which, like, that's what the people around him seem to think, especially Juri. She's just like, bro, you're just, like, amazing, you know? Like, why are you so angry all the time? What are you, like, why can't you accept that you're just good at doing stuff, you know? So, yeah, I thought this was a really strong episode. Strong character dynamics. Leaves Miki with a lot of growth to do because, obviously, he loses the duel. He does tell Utena he still plans to challenge her again later, so he hasn't, like, learned a lesson, you know? And I think that's what makes this so interesting is that we got, like, this robust vision of why he is where he's at, the arc that led him to here, but the arc of where he's supposed to go, totally up in the air. No idea. So, yeah.
I hope we get another backstory next episode.
I think we probably will. Alright, that's it for Utena. Oh, next is going to be Maison Ikkoku. I gotta go pee. Bird just, like, woke up.
Power nap, you know? You went off to pee.
10-second power nap.
I know I had some time. Alright, Maison Ikkoku. This was a fun episode. I enjoyed this. I don't quite remember this screen cap, but I'm sure a lot of these happen in every episode.
The episode starts off with this bizarre dream sequence where he's, like, with her on the beach, and there's, like, all these, like, Koto players in the background. Basically, he, like, premonitions his grandma appearing. We don't know who it is. There's just, like, an old lady in his dreams.
Yeah, and so he's avoiding the house.
Yeah, that's because he will not go back to Maison Ikkoku until he has passed an exam.
Oh, I didn't catch that either. Shit.
Yeah, so...
That makes a lot more sense.
Basically, he's hanging out at the pachinko parlor with his friend, who he is rooming with for now, because he doesn't want to be constantly antagonized about the fact that nobody thinks he could possibly have passed his exam. Now, I gotta say, I mean, I don't want to spoil it yet, but, like, I really, with this show, did not know how long it was going to take before this guy would get into college. I was almost sure he would, because it's 112 episodes, the gimmick cannot be that he never gets into college.
That'd be so funny if it was, though.
I mean, how long can you keep finding ways to keep that interesting?
Oh, he goes through every trade possible.
Yeah, that could be it. But like Rumiko Takahashi, I've seen 160 episodes of Ranma. I've seen 160 plus episodes of Inuyasha. There's plenty of filler in both of those anime adaptations, but even in the original stories, I've read some Urusei Yatsura. Like, it tends to be that she finds a lot of slight variations on essentially the same joke, and will milk it for all that it possibly can be taken for. And in some of those cases, like, already the anime is like already the original manga, I should say, is fairly repetitive with the humor. So like maybe every time a character shows up, there's gonna be a joke about them like saying a certain line or doing a certain action, and they might have like 1, 2, 3 gimmicks per character that are definitely gonna show up. And maybe it's done in a new way that makes it interesting, but then there's going to be like filler episodes where they just do like the most generic version of that joke that you've already seen in a main episode. And that's when it becomes fucking insufferable, when like the repetitiveness of the show just becomes awful. And I was afraid we might get some of that with this show. I didn't know how long, how many episodes can I keep laughing at this guy not getting into college? How long will it stay funny before it gets old? And we've had plenty of people in our chat being like, I really hope he gets in before too long,
Well, now we get to see all his roommates make fun of him while he's in college, as opposed to not in college.
But we're not going to find out that until the end of the episodes, I guess. So, yeah, most of this episode is him trying to avoid being back at the house, but unfortunately he needs underwear. Even though he wins big at pachinko, his friend who he's staying with is like, yeah, you're spending that on Korean barbecue, buddy. You're staying at my house. So he's like, you need to stop being an idiot and go back to the apartment and get your underwear. So he's trying to steal his underwear off of the clothesline that he has them on without being seen. He fails. He gets seen by the funny British accent guy, although we watched this in Japanese, so we didn't hear that version of him. But and then like the dog ends up snatching the underwear and chewing them up, and he has to escape. And the underwear are found by a manager, and she's just like, "Uh-oh, my dog did this." So then, as manager is wandering the streets, and she's been like trying to figure out where the fuck Godai is. She's just like, I don't know what happened to this man. I hope he's okay. I hope he's not killing himself because other people are about not getting into college. And then she just happens upon this old woman who is the grandma. She has come into town to find out if he's going to pass the exams. It's hard to tell if she's like hopeful or thinks it's going to happen, but she's got to be there just in case, I guess.
I think she's not hopeful.
She's eating ramen in the streets, by the way.
That's pretty cool of her.
It is pretty cool. In Japan, I believe it is considered very rude to eat while walking or just like eating in public in general. So particularly ramen, which is a very like sit down and like slurp this thing at a leisurely pace kind of. Well, not a leisurely pace. You gotta eat it kind of fast, but like, I don't know. Ramen while walking around the streets is a little much. Look at that look on her face. She's so proud of herself. So there's a lot of scenes of just kind of introducing the grandma to the rest of the cast and them kind of, reiterating their stance on him not passing college. I think some parts of this episode felt kind of slow in that they're not really that funny, but it does a lot of legwork in continuing to build the world. And, like, sure, that world is just, like, contemporary Japan of the 80s, but particularly with this show, and I know this is true of Urusei Yatsura, even though I haven't seen a ton of it, there's this fixation on, like, using locations for comedy where it's like, okay, well, there's gotta be, like, if we're gonna do a scene that takes place at the candy store, let's say it doesn't happen in this episode, but, like, then there's going to be a candy store that is always the candy store in town. There are certain shows that do a better job of this than others, but like with this show, there's a very real sense of like the same background characters are going to keep appearing, the same locations are going to keep appearing. You're going to know those locations extremely well. I am going to be able to tell you how to get around Maison Ikkoku apartments if I can't already. I've got a decent picture of the layout. I mean, it's a pretty standard apartment building, or what would you call it? A dorm?
Just like a house.
Dormitory, big house. Yeah, like this episode just gives you a ton of that, like characters moving about town, moving around the locations, interacting with sort of randoms. Like you see a lot of people meeting Godai's grandma in this episode as she maneuvers the town, and the reason I explained all of that about the slow moments is that in those moments sometimes you get the character details that are like just a little deeper than what's going on in the story itself. Like what's happening in the story here, they go to check the results. Did he get in or not? And it could just be a scene of them like finding that out, but instead there is first a scene of them not being sure if Godai is there. Manager and the grandma are like, where the hell is he? When they find him, he's like, I haven't checked the results yet. And the grandma calls him a coward, which she had already called him behind his back to everybody else in the cast, and then starts beating him with her shoe.
It's called a chancla.
I think it tells us a lot about Godai and why he is the way he is, that he's used to his grandma calling him a coward and beating him with a shoe.
It's nice to see things that transcend culture, like sun gods beating people with sandals.
Yeah.
Flatbread.
It also is in a kid, like this is why he hits the child that looks like a kid version of him, is he's used to being physically assaulted by the older people in his life for his failures. But yeah, ultimately he did get into college. Holy fucking shit, can you believe it? It's only taken 5 episodes. It could have been so many more. I do feel like they milked the joke pretty hard. I think I would have gotten tired of it if it went any further.
Yeah.
I hadn't gotten tired of it yet, which is why I'm surprised that I'm like, oh, right. Good timing, good pacing. I'm okay. If this is the rate that things will develop in this show, I'll allow it. Here's, of course, the celebration of him getting into college. Just any other day, pretty much. Getting his ass bit by Soichiro. His grandma has joined in on the drunken festivities.
She's the party starter. Fuck everyone else.
For sure. There's always a very obnoxious, tiny old person in every Rumiko Takahashi story. I don't know what that's about. I don't know if she just had like really annoying little old people in her life or something, but it always happens. So yeah, that's Maison Ikkoku this week. It was entertaining and the plot moved. So glory, glory, hallelujah. Now it's time for Gundam. Mobile Suit Condom. Do you remember this episode of The Witch from Mercury, Bird?
I do. This was an interesting episode.
This was a lot better than the last 2.
I feel like this isn't the only character named Choo Choo we have this season.
There's the little monkey that Anthe has.
You're right.
But yeah, Sis Girl is also Choo Choo. Probably in reference to that monkey now that I'm thinking about it.
Choo Choo's got the ears, she's got the palms.
Just Revolutionary Girl Utena, like with like a few extra steps. Well, and I think as we're going along, because the similarities to Utena are mostly in the whole like Rose Bride system and the dueling system, and nothing else about the show feels that similar. But also the characters that are like in parallel positions to Utena have almost the exact opposite personalities. Where like, Anthe is like super subservient to the system. Everything that silver-haired girl in this show says is like, fuck the system, do whatever you want, don't be like that. Whereas, Utena is like brash and outgoing and very sure of herself and willing to challenge everybody. Suleta is like running behind people and hiding when she's challenged. She only feels comfortable about the fact that she is skilled in the Gundam, but like as a normal person living everyday life, total wimp. And then The Saionji parallel. I can't remember his name right now, but he while he is a lot like Saionji in that he's like way too obsessed with like this masculine self-image and like proving himself, he is also like chivalrous. He does not come off as like a guy who would be slapping his girlfriend around to prove what a man he is all day. So the characters are a little different, even though they're in similar positions. This episode is mostly about racism between the space people and the Earth people, and how many students at this school are really racist, especially Choo Choo here. She does not like these Spatians. She thinks they must live really carefree lives because that guy just proposed to that girl in the middle of the battlefield, and this was all just a lover's spat. What idiocy. We find out that the Holder, which is what they call the champion of the duels in this show, gets their own special outfit.
Which is nice. Looks cool.
Yeah.
I hadn't noticed that when Guel had it, but Guel's just rich, so I assumed he just got cool outfits.
That's fair, yeah. So Guel, even though he proposed to her,
it wasn't like a real proposal, Beatrice. I mean, he would never fall for a country bumpkin like her.
I am curious where they're going with this, because it looked sincere. He's like, will you marry me? He's got like the steely eyes, She runs away and flies off, and he's like insisting, wait, it's not like that. That's not what I mean. So what does he mean?
Maybe he just wants to pilot like a tandem Gundam with her.
I don't know. Was he in love with her? Is he just trying to like save face because she turned him down and ran away? It's hard to say, but he shows up and he's like he's like, well, look, as per the rules of the duel, which I super respect, like, I'm going to bow my head and apologize for what I've done, but like, don't get it misguided. My marriage proposal was not because I like you, Suleta. Actually, I dislike you. So yeah, confusing interaction, but a little curious what his real feelings are. So this is a fun thing we got going on. Everybody's taking this exam, and the idea is that they take, I don't remember what kind of mobile suit this is, but they have to run it across a minefield, like detecting. They have one person who's like detecting mines, and the other person is running the robot around, avoiding the mines. They have to like switch guns at one point with these cool little outpost things that like grab the gun, pull it off their arm, and like attach a different gun arm thing. That was fun to watch. But basically, we see Choo Choo doing this test and ultimately failing because, as she's halfway through, all of a sudden this black like ink starts spreading all over her monitors and she can't see anymore. And she's like, "What the fuck?" And Silver-haired girl is like, "Isn't this that slow activating like reflection paint or whatever the fuck it's called?" So
she got pranked.
Yes, Choo Choo got pranked and just kind of disqualified and didn't really understand what happened. Yes.
She got pranked. She's from Earth. Those dirty Earthians.
They're not totally explicit that this is what's going on at first, so you could miss it. If not, like, if you're not comparing what happened at the start of the episode to what happens later. But yeah, these two girls are like, Earthians are such an eyesore. Like, they're really happy about the fact that Choo Choo failed because she's from Earth, and they do not like them Earth people. Which, in fairness, Choo Choo also hates space people. So it's racism all around. They're all having at each other. Meanwhile, Suleta is making friends with that blue-haired girl that's been around that she borrowed the ride from. And
what it is so Suleta takes the mobile suit mine quiz and fails immediately because she needs two people to do like a spotter, and then I forget what the other thing was.
She like goes out onto the field like by herself, and they're like, you can't do it by yourself. Like, I don't know how you made it this far into the exam not understanding the premise of the exam, but you need a second person with you.
You would think this school well, no, they probably
They really don't. I think they are actively trying to fuck with the like Like, basically, if you can't figure it out,
I
you're
just
not
think it's all in
qualified.
manuals and reading material and stuff.
Well, so
in the universe.
there was some debate in the Discord earlier. One day when we have time to do this show for real, I will take a bunch of screen caps of discussions that happened about these shows that I thought were interesting and bring them in. But one that happened here was about whether or not it was bullshit for the school to disqualify the students for the ink stuff. Because there's a line in there where they basically say you were supposed to have checked, part of the test is having checked your Gundam.
That is true.
Well, how the fuck were you going to see some invisible slow activation shit? Well,
That's
there must be
true.
something, I guess. We don't know how you could have done it. We just know that they expect you to have done it. If something goes wrong, you fucked up. And I don't think that's this is war training. It's not just pass a quiz so that you can have a degree and tell people you're cool. It's can you survive? Will you get killed because the enemy put slow activation, Heidi paint on your thing?
Heidi paint.
I don't think it's unreasonable for them to be hyper strict about the way that these things work. And Suleta is obviously in over her head. She just has a really strong Gundam. She's not necessarily that smart or knows what she's doing, but she has a certain innocence to her. She doesn't think, she has no prejudices against Earth people. I guess people of Mercury don't have that.
Well, Mercury is a tiny little planet that it's a mining colony, as far as I know.
Yeah.
Most of the people have left because they can get the stuff that's mined there on other planets too.
I think on the moon now. They're found out it was the same stuff was on the moon. Whether they can get it from there or something.
But anyway, so Suleta needs a spotter or whatever. And so she talks to blue-haired girl in engineering. And blue-haired girl is with two other friends of hers.
Earth people.
Yeah, and the friends go,
come to
we're
our
Earth people,
Earth
right?
place if you want to hang out. They know somebody who can help her with whatever she needed at the time. So they invite her to Earth place. Basically all the kids from Earth have their own little dorm that's full of goats and such. Earth
animals.
stuff. Earthy things like goats. Cute goat.
That just girly things, just earthy things.
The long and short of that scene is that, the Earth people think she's fine except for Choo-Choo, who's get that fucking space bitch out of here. And they're all chill out, Choo-Choo, it's fine, she's cool.
But Choo-Choo does not chill out, and so Suleta has to look elsewhere. Aelin is this character's name. Aelin shows up and is basically tough shit, huh? Then Miorine basically shows up and goes, hey, this guy's the enemy too. He's after me just as much as anyone else. And Aelin goes, I do not care about you.
Yeah, and Suleta's that guy's nice and hot.
Yeah, he just invited me to his house.
I want to be his friend. Fuck you. Meanwhile, at her house, by the way, this is what our hotel room looks like right now, pretty much. Even though I spent most of what is now very clearly yesterday doing chores, I have not gotten to clean this room yet. So it's just covered in trash bags and bullshit and clothes. I don't remember what they're talking about in this scene, actually.
Me neither.
Welp.
Oh, right. So I do remember. Miorine is learning how to do both of the roles that Suleta needs someone to do.
Okay.
And she basically learns that Suleta hasn't really read this book.
Yeah, she also has a lot of plants in a different part of her house. So we learn a little bit of why there's so much tension between space people and Earth people, which is basically all about business administrative laws. You can see all these signs saying things
I've never heard of a
Spatian
revolution
capitalism
happen over business administrative law.
Spatian capitalism kills Earthian workers, liberty and equality for Earthians. We want economic fairness, justice, and peace. Yesterday, business administrative laws were enforced against an illegal occupation. So basically, what's happening is that there are factories on Earth owned by Spatians that Earth people have reclaimed, that I assume probably just weren't even being used, but it's being considered an illegal occupation and they're being forced out. So the Earth people are, of course, pissed off about this. And, even at this school, which is in space, the Earth kids are all, like, watching this on the news and, being pissed off. Choo-Choo's got, like, a team of people who she talks to who, her back home squad. They're all dealing with stuff, but they don't want her to worry about it. They just want her to go out there and get it, for Earth. So, yeah, these are good kids, I guess. This is probably the most interesting conversation to me in this episode, especially because it highlights what I was saying about how, what did you say her name is? The
Miorine?
Miorine? That's such a hard name. Miorine has the exact opposite stance of Anthe in this scene, where she's talking to Suleta about why Suleta does what she does, and Suleta's like, all these people told me, they encouraged me, they were like, you can do this for us and for Mercury, and I want to build a school on Mercury and, like, bring people back to it. She's basically like Skip from Skip and Loafer, where she's like, my hometown's been deserted, I gotta bring population back. So she's saying all this stuff, and Miorine is just like, why do you gotta do all that?
Yeah.
You don't gotta do all that. You don't gotta worry about all that expectation, all that bullshit. You gotta live for yourself. You don't gotta live for other people's expectations. Obviously, this is very prescient to her because all the expectations that are thrust on her suck, and she hates them, and she doesn't want to be doing any of that stuff. So, she's literally trying to run away from the expectations thrust on her.
No one wants to be the Rosebred.
No. Well, yeah, no. Nobody.
But so there's a retake exam or whatever.
As they're doing the exams,
Choo-Choo and what's the main character? Suleta are both there. Suleta shows up, and this time Suleta got the ink on her instead of Choo-Choo.
So both of them are having to retake, but like you're allowed to retake, I guess, as many times as you want. So as soon as they realize that Suleta's got ink on there, which apparently is too hard to get off to just like do that in between attempts, they just keep rerunning it. Miorine's just like, do it again. Give us another
close,
take.
But they keep running out of time.
Yeah, they keep either like, it takes them a couple tries to get to the point of knowing where the mines are, but then they're like too short on time. And at some point, the other girl, Choo-Choo's like, hey, I can't start my exam until you're done. What's taking so long? And Miorine's like, pipe the fuck down.
We can do redos.
We're doing this until we get it right. But Suleta breaks down and is just like, I don't want to be here
She
anymore.
does just like start crying. It's really sad.
She's just like, I really don't want to do this. Kind of hate it. This isn't really cutting it for me. I feel disrespected.
I don't know if I have the legs to go the distance.
So while she's breaking down, Miorine's like encouraging her, like, you have to do this. You want to build that school. You want to be cool. You want to be the girl that you want to be. You got to get those two, what is it, the thing you always say in every other episode that you didn't this time? About the one thing and the two things.
Oh,
you get two. You get two if you don't got one.
If you run away, you get one.
Yeah, if you stay, you get two. She's running away.
But so, Choo-Choo hears all of this. I guess everyone's hearing all of this. It's not really clear. Oh my god, I just noticed the little Haros.
The bike Haros.
Bike Haros. But so Choo-Choo and I guess everyone else who's witnessing these practices hears Suleta's breakdown, and Choo-Choo sees the two girls who did this to the mech and just starts beating the shit out of them.
Yeah, I think somehow... I don't remember how they figure out that it's them.
Because they've been chuckling the whole time.
Okay. This scene is really good because Choo-Choo walks straight up to these girls and hits one of them in the face so fucking hard. The animation of this, it's like you see the fist coming towards the screen and then like cut to side view of it just going into this girl's face. And it's unmistakable from the way she's animated. She is just knocked out cold. She just slumps over, gone. And the other girl's like terrified before she also gets the shit knocked out of her. This is something that, Utena has some really great fight scenes, but they're very very shoujo-y, very flowery. They're more about like dramatic poses.
Yeah.
It's not really like a lot of impact violence. Gundam is about impact violence and people beating the fuck out of each other and punching each other in the face. So this is where you once again get that like, oh yeah, it's Gundam. This is Gundam. You know, like dumb racists punching each other in the face over pointless squabbles. Gundam. So I enjoyed that.
Gundam.
Oh yeah.
Speaking of
hey,
Gundam,
more Gundam. I guess the way that episode ended was, did they pass that test?
No, but they can retake it again.
Okay, yeah, they're still trying to retake the test. So yeah, big racism.
Oh, they took Guel's robot away from him.
I forgot about that. So now let's talk about the original Mobile Suit Gundam.
And Guel's dad gets threatened.
Oh, yeah, that happened way earlier in the episode. He's just like, I'm going to fucking murder my son because they're not going to give me money anymore.
Which is how it goes, you know?
Yeah.
Anyway, so...
Original Mobile Suit Gundam. Wow. Hey, they've got all these people from Earth who are being people, some of them from Earth, some of them just live on Side 7, but they're all being taken to Earth so that...
they can live on Earth.
Yeah, maybe they'll have some chance of survival in this god-awful war, or at least something familiar. So White Base is on its way towards Earth's atmosphere. Amuro's hanging out with this kid and this old guy because he's got a broken RC car, and Amuro, with his brilliant mechanic skills, fixes it real quick. And then he gets these people's backstory. The kid's parents died in the 1-week battle that happened at some point in this war. And the old man was apparently like a raisin farmer. And he's got like a pocket full of raisins that he's gonna plant.
Baby.
Oh yeah, coffee beans. That's right, not raisins. They look the same.
No, it's because
he's a coffee farmer.
He tells a story about how coffee was originally found because like we saw animals eating the fruit and using it for energy, and then we realized we could eat. Well, yeah, kind of just consume the beans for energy.
Consume the beans.
I have to use the restroom.
So anyway, yeah, they're on their way to Earth. Amuro makes friends with a coffee bean man. And meanwhile, in the bridge, they're kind of like, you know, it's cool that we're getting close to Earth. And I know this isn't really the time when we normally get attacked, but Mirai's just like, I cannot believe that Char is not just going to keep attacking us. Like, that guy, he seems pretty insistent. I would bet he's still gonna do something.
Cut to oh, not yet.
But then they're like, they see that he's getting resupplied, and they're like, well, shit, maybe he's giving up. Maybe he's just, maybe he's just beefing up, and he's gonna go back. Maybe he's gonna go on the defensive. Probably not a good bet. Why would he need supplies to go on the defensive? Right? You're not thinking. So basically, Char tells his men, we are going to launch this attack with a 20-minute window before White Base goes into Earth's orbit. If we go into orbit, we will fucking die. The Zakus will definitely explode. So we only have 20 minutes to fuck shit up and just kind of get in and get out. But they're going to be so distracted by trying to enter the atmosphere and all the shit they got to do. It's going to work, guys. Don't worry about it. It's totally going to work. We got 3 whole Zakus. We got our backup. Like, this is all I need. So the attack begins, and I mean, I'm not going to go into all the details of everything that happens in this battle because fights in Gundam are chaotic. There's just tons of people running around shooting stuff. Usually the main point of these battles is to show you some new way that things could have gone wrong. Like in this case, they're being barraged with missiles. They're supposed to have return missiles, but the guys in the missile bay have never been trained on doing this, so they don't know how. So like it comes down to Amuro. He's got like a rocket launcher. Usually there's some kind of new weapon for the Gundam introduced in each of these episodes, I've noticed. He's always got another toy.
He's had the rocket launcher before.
Maybe so, but he's he blows up a Zaku with it. He loses his spare. At one point, they throw him, I think they call it the Gundam Hammer or something, which is this fucking spike ball.
It's a cool mace.
as it's on its way to him, Char is like, now's my chance. And he blasts the mace with a rocket, knocking it into the Gundam and knocking the Gundam back. The funny thing about Gundam is that, like, usually the tactics, like, behind the battle sound really logical, but the actual, like, how Gundams fight is just like, what the fuck? A mace? They're throwing a fucking big mace at each other in space and shooting the mace with rockets. And all right, it's fun. It's pretty entertaining. The main point of this episode seems to be to show that Amuro is getting much better. He's also getting more vicious. He's just like kind of sick of these guys being on his tail and threatening the lives of these people. So he's like really out to get these fuckers. And especially Char. So him and Char have like much more of an engagement, but it's clear that it's not just the Gundam anymore. Amuro is starting to get a little bit better. But they're like, hey, Amuro, like, because he's determined to take down Char no matter what, and he's using like his head cannons, which are like his last resort. They're like the last little guns, the hardest to aim things. And these guys are like, hey, Amuro, you need to get out of there. You're going to burn up from going into the atmosphere with that thing. But he's so dead set that he's like, I'm going in. And Bright's like, uh-oh. And the like admiral they have on board is like, I'll have you court-martialed for letting these amateurs pilot your things or whatever. And they're just like, dude,
who else was gonna do it? But
like they stopped they literally just blew up 3 Zaku's for us. Like, what do you want?
The Gundam's just like getting really hot. You can tell because it's red, and Amuro's just like, oh hey, in the manual, a way to go through the atmosphere. Yep. Let me just get my whole body condom out.
Yeah, good thing there's a Gundam condom. A thing just a big sheet you can wear and safely fall to Earth. So like, basically, this is another case where Char had made an assumption based on the way things have been of like, oh, well, even if we all fucking die trying to make it happen, because, like, one of the guys who gets blown up, he's like, look, I can't stop you falling into the atmosphere, you're dead, but at least you lured the Gundam in, so it's gonna die too. Nope. It's got a little sheet, it's fine. Char is blown away by this. But lucky for Char, this was a 2-step operation. He was actually... Part of his attack was that he wasn't just trying to destroy them outright. He was trying to control where they ended up landing when they got on Earth, because there are parts of Earth that are controlled by Zeon. So he has them land in a super Zeon-occupied part of Earth. And so while they're all oohing and ahhing, especially the people who've never seen Earth before, he's calling Captain Garmazabi and telling him, I led them into your trap. And he's like, I'll intercept them with my new Gaw attack carrier, which is this thing. Pretty cool looking purple spaceship.
Is it an Evangelion?
So yeah, this episode ends with our crew has reached Earth, but they're immediately being beset by Zaku warships. So out of the frying pan into the ... Once
fire.
more.
It's fire is what it is.
It's Rick and Morty reference. All right, it's time
what
for
a young
Monster.
and beautiful, pretty girl who looks like nothing has ever happened to her. I'm sure she's got a lot going on for her in life.
This episode, as somebody who has read only 20th Century Boys from this author before, Naoki Urasawa, that manga has a bit that is very similar to this, where like 5 volumes in, there's a massive time skip, and it just kind of shifts focus to like, this girl is the main character now. And while that's not what's happening in this show per se, for this episode at least, it's pretty much like, all right, you're meeting this new girl, and she is now the focus. The first scene is like a professor in a lecture hall, and
law. It's like criminal law. They're talking about murders.
They're talking about a case, and he's like, "Can anybody answer this question?"
And then
really?
She shows up
nobody can answer it. And then she shows up late, answers the question easily, and he's like, "Ah, my star student." And of course, the way they build up to revealing this girl in and of itself makes it obvious she must be the sister. This is Johan's sister.
What?
Everybody.
Spoilers?
It's gotta be. It's the only.
Whoa!
I don't
hey,
think it's supposed to be a spoiler.
That's
right?
not. You're not allowed to
I
say
really
things
think
like
they
that.
expected you to conclude this immediately. So yeah, this is Johan's sister. She's all cute and grown up. There's finally a cute girl in this show. We get some scenes of her. Like, other kids are really happy that she did that because they're like, oh, if nobody had answered that, he was gonna fucking ruin our day. So thank God you showed up. And this guy tries to like ask her out, but she's like, too busy with club. And they're like, damn, what's her club? Judo club. Now, Naoki Urasawa, also his first big long-running series was Yawara, the judo girl. Literally a slice of life manga about a girl doing judo. So I think it might be a thing he's really into. There's enough about this girl that reminds me of the girl from 20th Century Boys and also Yawara that I'm just like, this is just his favorite girl. Like, this is clearly the Naoki Urasawa, like, ideal young girl anyway, is like into judo, very bright, headstrong, running around trying to figure out what's... Yeah, I think so.
For whatever reason,
I assume
does Germany have so much Japanese culture?
You know,
what happened?
I don't know.
How did that? They just seem like such. I mean, I guess they're both very, upright, high disciplined people, but I don't know.
So this scene, she gets home and she's literally checking her email. I love the presentation of old email. This is before I even had an email that it looked quite like this.
Macs looked like this. Just in general, like still.
Yeah. So she's reading through her emails. She's got like some weird poetic stuff in there. Some other stuff she doesn't really understand. It's just like some weird, mysterious emails.
I was born to cover you in flowers.
And she just kind of thinks that these are her friends being weird. So she gets to school the next day and she's talking to her friends about these weird emails, and they're like, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. I can't write that. I had nothing to do with this. And she's just like, oh, weird. So then in class one day, the professor is talking about a case where a whole family was murdered, and suddenly our girl is mad shook, triggered as fuck, not having it. She, I think, literally passes out. She has like almost a seizure.
It also cuts to her fake family for a while and kind of implies that she doesn't have a whole lot of good memory. She's not good at the memory thing.
Yeah, they're like, oh, you totally wore a costume once. Here's a picture of you in a costume. And she's just like, I do not remember this at all.
She's like, tee-hee, I forgot.
This is an aspect of this character I connect with, not because I don't remember stuff, but because I'm always paranoid about what I don't remember. That, like, because, like, I have a unbelievably long memory for a lot of things, but also there are things that, like, people will tell me I said this a few days ago, and I'm like, I don't think that happened. Like, in my, like, I cannot summon the memory of that. So I always get freaked out by anything I can't remember, because it makes me wonder if, like, if I've, like, dissociated it into a totally different, like, personality or something, which is exactly what this girl is going through. She has just blanked out the first 10 years of her life, pretty much. It was so traumatizing that in order for her to be able to live on, she just had to stop. But every time something starts to resurface those emotions, she's pretty much gone. She's out. She just collapses. I also understand being triggered into collapse, although it's not something that's really happened to me more than, like, I don't know, once. But meanwhile, Tenma,
the main character,
he's decided he's a detective now. He's just going around asking everybody about if they know about this kid who was apparently, like, fostered around this area. And yeah, everybody knows about this Michael that he apparently was being known as. This screen cap him saying there was definitely a boy named Michael living here. Yeah, you could say
I think his name was Johan.
I'm pretty sure any city in the world you could say there was definitely a boy named Michael living there. But yeah, apparently Johan was just a name he was using at the time. He was not. I don't think they were even the children of that the parents they killed. They were just foster children already. So it's unclear where the twins even came from. They weren't around for that long. And as he's asking around, most people don't remember much or just want to forget about that incident. Also, she keeps getting weird emails saying that someone's going to come for her soon. Uh-oh, who could that be? So basically, this old man overhears Tenma talking to a lady and is like, hey, I know about that kid. He used to hang out with me all the time. I would tell him stories. He would, he was learning like French and English or something like that and, mastered them, even though he was like 14 or something like that. And he always wanted to hear my war stories. He always wanted to hear this story about me and all my people being in a submarine for like 3 weeks, not sure if we were going to live, because he was really interested in stories about fear. And he's just obsessed with fear, and especially the fear of a person standing on the edge of death. And that's all he cares about. This old man basically thinks he's like a hollow, fucked up monster of a sociopathic man.
Whoa, that's the name of the show almost.
And even though this guy is blind, he has a pretty good, like, accurate sense of even just what he looks like based on his personality. So, yeah, he's just like, that guy's bad news. Definitely the guy you're thinking of. Also, he has a plan that when his sister turns 20, he's going to go and regroup with her. And wouldn't you know it, according to her foster parents, they too have been planning to tell her that she's not actually their child on her 20th birthday. Guess what it is? Uh-oh, sounds like some plot points are gonna converge.
Ruh-roh, Raggy.
Yeah, so, he's totally at her school. He's totally just like right there stalking.
But
she sees him and she's like, what is that?
There's a bunch of friends of hers or whatever that go, hey, we found the guy who's sending you these emails. Here he is. And that's just some random dude.
Yeah.
But then in the background, Johan is standing there and she sees him and goes, hey, I know that guy from somewhere. I know that guy from somewhere. And she collapses.
This episode was okay. It's nice to be reintroduced to the sister, get a little shake up in perspective, and not just be on like the doom and gloom spiral with Dr. Tenma forever. Although the scenes he did have, were pretty all right. People were pointing out that this show has like a bit of a film noir feel to it, and I would say that like it definitely uses a lot of the like visual language and stuff of that, but I don't know if it always like goes hard enough. I feel like I've always heard that Naoki Urasawa, like, adaptations, he wants them to be extremely faithful to the manga. And it does make me wish, like, they had been able to take more creative liberty just to, like, maybe make the shots a little more dynamic for what's going to look good in TV, instead of kind of lightly reworking manga panels to something with color, But, it is what it is. Still a pretty good show. I'm intrigued.
Monster.
Intrigued but not yet enthralled. That's what I will say. Yeah.
Oh boy, Mushoku Tensei.
We both at once. So, Mushoku Tensei. There's this bit in the anime Shirobako where this one girl Diesel, she wants to become a writer. And something happens where somebody's like chauvinistic to her at work, and she's really upset about it. So she writes a scene that pretty transparently is exactly what happened to her. And she hands it to her like mentor, her writing mentor who writes anime shows, and he reads it and he just goes, this is too raw. And I think about that line a lot because like a lot of what stories exist for, what fantasy and everything exists for, is to like basically communicate to you things that you probably wouldn't accept in a normal context. Like if somebody told you this is how the world is, or like this is how people are, you wouldn't believe it. But when you see it play out in a believable way, then it makes you consider whether that is the way the world is. A lot of anime can be annoying to me because characters are insisting the world is a certain way that I don't think it is, and so I like reject the premise of the show and get upset with it. That's not the issue here with Mushoku Tensei. The issue here is it's too fucking raw. It feels this whole arc is just literally about the main character having erectile dysfunction and trying to get over it.
There's nothing wrong with that. There's plenty of companies that can help you take care of this. I even saw there's one company that has like mints that you can just mints that make you hard mints.
So
they're hard because they're called hard mints because they make you hard.
The
mints themselves are chewable.
This is my personal speculation, all right? This could be bullshit. This could even have already been disproven. Somebody might know better than me. But, at the start of the show when he gets tied up with his dick out to the school gate, little much. Probably hasn't really happened to a lot of people in real life. Girl laughs at your unerect dick and calls you the worst. Definitely happens all the time. Now, what do I think could have traumatized this author to be afraid of sex to such a point of closing themselves off in a room and writing an entire book about sexual rehabilitation?
He tried to hook up with his sister, and she made fun of him.
Could be. I'm just saying, it seems like a topic that was weighing very heavily on this author's mind, because we really are like, it might as well be the plot of the season. This what the story is about right now is, can Rudius get hard again? What's wrong with Rudius's dick? That's the new name of this show. Now, granted, this episode opens with a big, kind of cool fight scene. Quagmire Rudius is working with the party that the one dude that he beat up in the last episode. They're friends. They're hanging out. They've been partying for a while. They're killing bears again. All anybody seems to do in this show is like kill bears. But then a dragon shows up. Oh shit! And the dragon's animated pretty cool. Kind of reminds me of Shingeki no Bahamut, but not as ridiculously good as that animation was. But Rudius kills it. He kills this fucking dragon practically by himself, and everybody's like, holy shit, dude. You're a real badass now. And he's like, yeah, my name's gonna get out there. He's working out. He's taking care of himself. Seems like life might be going okay for Rudius. And so one day, hey, horny girl who's Roxy's friend shows up.
Ellen Elise, I think.
And she's like, hey, I found you. Also, damn. And he's like, damn.
That's the other thing, too. Rudius is a little older and buff as hell now.
Yeah. And as soon as he sees this girl, he's like, wow, she's putting down wanting to fuck me vibes in a way I didn't know was possible. Am I going to get laid with this girl? Is that where this is going?
No.
It almost kind of does.
But she doesn't want to hook up with, or she doesn't want to become Paul's daughter-in-law.
Yes. So even though she kind of wants to fuck him, she kind of doesn't. She kind of gives the impression that if he did want to, they would. But because he's not, like, pushing for it, she's not pushing for it either. That's kind of the vibe I got off of it. But, of course, she, like, hangs out in town and just immediately starts fucking every other guy in town. And so he's, like, blown away by her way of being. Yeah, just, like, how is it that she can be this way? And it's, like, not a problem for her. Like, how is this not causing her any issues? It's basically, he's just blown away by the fact that this is happening. Again, like, this has the same vibe to me as in the beginning with the parents, where the argument I made in my video about kind of getting into this show was that, like, the fantasy is, what if I had grown up in an environment where, like, sexuality was like something inviting and persistent and normalized. You know, like if my parents were just these beautiful people who were having sex all the time and having multiple partners, and like my perspective on sex was different, would that change the way that I would have approached it later in life? The point of this show is like, can Rudius become a person who would get laid after having 36 years of being a virgin and dying a virgin and then being reborn? We already know he can get laid, but it unfortunately had negative psychological consequences. So, like, you know, I just feel like this is where the real story has begun. Like, this is always what the story was metaphorically, but now it's not a metaphor anymore. Now it's just about a guy with erectile dysfunction trying to figure out what's wrong with his dick. So, you know, it's very raw. We also learned this interesting detail that apparently she gets the guys she has sex with to pay her.
No, she pays them.
Oh, no, yeah, that's what I meant. She gets them to let her pay them, and in exchange they have to promise they will not get serious about her. But basically she's trying to introduce a transactional element to make them like have less likely to catch feelings. That's not how that works. If you make a guy pay for you, he's going to care about you more. I don't know if this is a trick. I don't know if she's doing this on purpose, but
it's a fun trick.
Simping, the way simping works is you get them to pay for you, and then to justify the fact that they paid for you, they start caring about you more. Anyway, I doubt the author of Mushoku Tensei understands this. She gets a letter from his dad saying that this University of Magic would love to have him as a student. This is a great example. Oh, also, like, he finds out that his mom is just, like, in this labyrinth city chillin'. I mentioned earlier how, like, Jujutsu Kaisen has moments that are, like, earth-shattering revelations for the story that are just, like, in conversation.
Yeah.
And in that show, it was interesting.
Here, it's just kind of there.
So, here's what we've been building to for the last 5 episodes. Where's your mom? Oh, you know, she's fine.
She's just living a totally carefree life,
she's
being a dungeon crawler up somewhere.
She's in some labyrinth. Okay, well,
I don't believe
it.
I
guess I look forward to seeing that. Also, how is the plot going to advance? You've just been invited to a college. You know, your dad sent a letter about it. Like, it's so banal. It's just so, like, commonplace and boring. There's not really much plot driving the plot. It just kind of happens through, like, very normal circumstance. So he has a dream about God again. God just kind of makes fun of him for where he's at right now.
Which is based of God.
And he's like, why are you being a dick? And God's like, well, look, I'm going to give you some advice. You should go to that university, dude. You should do it. And if you do, you're going to get your potency and pride back. Just outright tells him, look, you will get your dick back if you go to this college and you know, continue this thread. And just to make sure you absolutely understand how bad the ED is, we get the girl, he literally wakes up with her, like, on him in bed, and he still can't get hard. So this is our confirmation, you know, even if it's with somebody he, you know, knows he could be sexual with, I think it's just the fact that it's not that special connection that he's looking for, you know? It's gotta
That's
be
a shame.
He just wants
It's
a
a real
non-slut girlfriend, I guess. Which, yeah, it's a shame. The way this episode ends, like, they fuck off to go continue their journey. They leave the, you know, other guy and all his other friends behind. And then there's just kind of a montage of characters who we don't know who they are yet. Assumably they'll be important to the next arc, but I don't know who's this guy. Yeah, I don't know. This episode was better than any of the previous ones because Slut Girl was a main character. Rudius developed at least a little bit. We are directly addressing the ED thing as like a plot point. But yeah, it just felt like a lot of setup for the next arc that did not get me excited about it. No, there's nothing like building up that I'm like, oh, I'm so fucking hyped to see what the labyrinth city is gonna look like. I don't know. They didn't make it sound like anything interesting was happening with the mom.
No.
So
But they cut to this guy with 4 arms. That's cool.
he's like Goro from Mortal Kombat. Alright, what's next? Pokemon! This was a really solid episode of Pokemon.
Solid and cute.
We're on episode 16 of Pokemon Horizons.
Dot catches Kawasu.
Yeah, apparently she didn't, like, own him, or whatever. Like,
Own him.
I don't know how it works with Pokemon when they're caught, like how the system works, but he was not registered as her Pokemon. It's just like a friend. I say her. I want to use they them pronouns with Dot because the show is constantly convincing me that the character is probably intended to be non-binary. I just don't know if the show's ever going to say trans rights. Will Pokemon say trans rights? I want Pokemon to say trans rights. But yeah, this one, I will say the story of this episode is a little bit disorganized because it starts off, the last episode ended with Liko getting her pendant stolen. And they're like, we got to deal with the pendant stolen situation. But first, let's catch Kawasu real quick. Because Dot, you're outside for the first time and you're a Pokemon trainer now. So let's get this taken care of. So that happens. It's a cute scene. Kawasu very clearly chooses
Dot
to be in the
can't
Pokemon.
throw. She's not athletic.
Yeah, she's weak as hell. So basically they find out that there is some kind of boat that for whatever reason the bad guys would be on. I don't remember what the reason was. They all run to the harbor. The boat's already taking off. It's the only boat in town. And so is his name Leo who has the Charizard? Frida is like, yeah, I can just fly over there. I like this power difference. Like, in the games, you're just kind of playing until the point at which you would need fly. You get fly, and now you can fly. There's never been a sense in the anime of like knowing that you could fly and being envious of it. Like, these characters, they see him on the Charizard, and they're like, I wish I could do that. I wish we could be over there on the boat. But they just got basic-ass Pokemon. I mean, even though...
For now.
Yeah, and even though Roy has a flying type, like, it's not big enough, So it'll be interesting to see how because they have, like, older people there trying to aspire to be, like... It leaves room for like recognizable growth. We literally know what they're aspiring to. They want to be able to fly. They want all these cool abilities. So while they're left behind, Dot's just kind of asking like, hey, what is that pendant anyway? What's the deal with it? And she's kind of like, I don't really know, but it has some crazy effects. So on the boat, this is a bit of an odd scene. Because they show up, and there's a guy there who's just, like, ready to Pokemon battle. He's got a Bisharp. He's like, let's go.
That's what Pokemon trainers do. We just
that's
hang
true.
Out in places.
If your eyes meet, you have to battle. So I guess that's what's going on here. Because they start fighting, and as Pikachu's studying the enemy's moves, he's like, this isn't him. This isn't the bad guy. This is just a guy. We're just fighting this guy. Like... Literally, Captain Pikachu just kind of says that to him. Like, we're wasting our time right now. And meanwhile, Dot, like, running around, sees the orb gem, I think is what they called the weird psychic thing.
I think is what it is.
Yeah, and so they see it, they realize that, or Dot realizes, like, oh, this is where the bad guy is, not on that other boat. So she shoots up a big water gun, and they all go to investigate it. And this is where there's like this crazy dramatic animation of Dot like hair whipping all around, looking like a badass as they're getting ready to go into battle. And the reason I'm so set on the idea that Dot must be non-binary is that like somehow it hadn't clicked with me that she was like the third main character. Because on all the promotional art, you very prominently see Liko and Roy. And it's like, okay, they have a boy and a girl. But there's 3 starters. Well, if we don't want to have a second boy or a second girl, really...
Why don't we have a baby?
Why not non-binary?
Oh, wait. That Yeah, that makes more sense.
You got the red coated, the blue coated, and then there's a purple and green one. It's almost like a mixture of the other two colors. It's almost like I don't know. Pokemon, say trans rights.
Trans rights.
Do it for me. Do it for a longtime fan. So yeah, they're fighting the bad guy. There's a pretty protracted Pokemon battle of like, they use all of their Pokemon just to fight off the Magneton and the Orgem, and then the bad guy sends out Umbreon. Umbreon fucks everybody up, and then they the fucking glowy ball is happening. Her big super, what the hell is this thing called again with the goo? The the olive oil guy. They summon the olive oil guy, and they win. You know, they have a big win about it. Dot finally reveals to an ignorant Liko that she is Gurumin. She's like, look, I gotta tell you, if we're gonna be friends, you need to understand. I am Gurumin. I love that Gurumin has never actually been in a real-life Pokemon battle before now.
It's a pretty strange thing. You know, she has a lot of fucking technical knowledge.
Yeah, I think it's very internet. Like, you know, there's plenty of people who've learned entirely how to draw digitally and literally, like, can't draw by hand. I don't know if this is a comparable experience necessarily, but I get the feeling she's just, like, played a lot of Smogon, and that's why she knows Pokemon battles. That's, like, the online battling thing. Anyway, we also meet some bad guys, including this incredibly fucking adorable pink-haired girl.
It's Choo-Choo.
Yeah. So there's like a bunch of really good designs in this scene. Just cool-looking bad guys setting up for the next round. They're like, Umbreon guy, you've kind of blown it. You haven't even really stepped out of the shadows enough to make yourself recognizable. But he's like, nah, I'm still in. I'm still gonna do this. So we'll see what happens.
You missed a super chat.
I did. I missed. Gary Always at $2 said, giggity, 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 giggity. Thank you for all this. Oh, it must have been because of Quagmire
for like
Rudius.
4 minutes now. You can see
there
it.
There has been. Oh yeah, I can see it. Good thing it's far away. All right, it's time for some fast-moving Speed Racer. This episode is also jam-fucking-packed. This show, like, the amount of just stuff that happens in an average Speed Racer episode is honestly astounding. Image for image, you just feel like, wow, I saw a bunch. Like, this episode, we actually watched this in Japanese this time. Somebody requested we do it. They said that it's a pretty different experience. I don't know how different it is. It seems like this episode is mostly the same from just a quick skim, but I'm sure the dialogue's not the same. So there's a lot of talk of being drunk in here that I would doubt made it into the dub, but I didn't check. So basically, Speed, or Go, as he is known in Japanese, he's got his little brother and the monkey in the passenger seat. They're heading down the highway. It starts raining. They close up the automatic glass lid of the car, and they're listening to the radio, and it's like, hey, there's this gang that's said to have thousands of members around the world, and their boss has been, like, prison escaped. You better watch out.
That's Pikachu's voice actress. It's voiced by
the Sango,
yeah.
Bird was looking into the cute girl from Pokemon.
No, said.
Oh, okay. Okay. Voiced by Pikachu VA. Yeah, Otani Ikue rules.
Do you think she'll go Pika Pika?
Maybe. So as Speed and his brother are out on the road, they almost run into a 1922 Ford Model T. Just like,
for whatever reason,
coming down this mountain road, almost hits them. And they immediately just start laying into this car.
It's pretty rude. They're like, hey, man, are you drunk? Why is your roof not up? What's wrong with you, you fucking idiot?
Yeah, why is your car so shit? They're just like, your car is just the worst. And he's like, hey, look, I'm not drunk, and this car is amazing. Fuck both of you. And they're like, well, why can't you see where you're going? And he's like, well, maybe I could if it wasn't raining, but, you know, this old car doesn't got any goddamn windshield wipers or anything. So just like, you're hopeless. Though there's a little girl with this old man as well, and she's kind of laughing at them, and she's like, it's not polite what you guys are doing, so you should get out of here. And they're like, all right, fuck y'all. So they just kind of leave these two stranded in the rain.
I will say, just because we watched it subbed, the intro is a lot more violent than the dubbed intro is. There's a lot of like
more
crazy,
footage.
catastrophic shit going on.
I assume a lot of it also like is flashing forward to stuff that's going to happen later in the plot that's not shown in the English version. But yeah, so the monkey, I guess, is named Sanpei in Japanese, and kids like, hey, I kind of like that little girl, even though she was acting kind of stuck up and bitchy. Maybe we'll see her again. So the midsection of this episode is an interesting sequence where Speed is training for an upcoming race, and he's got like a drill instructor basically like screaming at him like, hey, you gotta do this, you're really fucking up the clutch here, and the sequence is cool as hell because I guess they just decided, it's a very bright day, so there's all these scenes where the road is yellow, and it's like first person perspective animated background yellow road. It's just like a little trippy. It feels like they knew they were going to be drawing a lot of the same types of shit with this show, so like, well, how do we keep making it interesting? Like, how do we differentiate this driving scene from other driving scenes? The road's yellow this time. It feels consistent because every other shot like is bright and painterly, but it's just unexpected, we'll say. Not a lot of yellow roads I have seen in anime. And the implication is not that the road is literally yellow either. It is it's only yellow in certain shots. This is the same road, to be clear. So what happens during this whole thing is at one point they're being tested on their like ability to run up and jump into the car, and Speed like fucks up and flops on his back.
He really fucks up.
It's pretty funny. And then Racer X, who's just around, comes like fucking flipping into the car, steals the Mach 5, and just does the track at like, godly speeds, whipping around all these flags, and everybody's just like glued watching him, including Speed, like sweating bullets, like holy fucking shit. This guy is so good. So basically he just punked Speed to the ultimate, like showing him, yeah, I can drive your car better than you, bitch. What you gonna do about it?
In the Discord this week, someone said something to the effect of, they should really change Racer X's name to Racer X, who is secretly Speed Racer's older brother X.
I don't remember if I mentioned this before. I know I said that he was obviously an influence on Char, but also just the relationship of Mega Man to various characters in the Mega Man games. Not just Proto Man, but also in Mega Man X. You play as a character named X, and there's a guy named Zero who, like, basically by the end of the game, you will get all of Zero's abilities, but at the beginning, he's just, like, way stronger and cooler than you, and so it's like, oh, how do I get to be that guy? And the game is about how you become that guy, and that's basically the dynamic here, is this guy shows up, shows Speed what it would look like if he was a badass, and is like, are you going to do that now? Very deliberately. So
and then they're driving back from this, and they see the Model T broken down again. I'm not sure if it's broken down from the first time or if it's a different breaking down, but
I think it is implied it's a different breakdown, like a different thing is broken this time. But yeah, they find them, and Speed's just like, please let me help fix your fucking car. The old guy's like, no, I hate modern cars. I hate all this new shit. Cars should be like my car. They need to have the double clutch and the manual transmission. And he's like, my car has all that shit, dude. And the guy's like, oh, it really does. I don't remember how Monkey got tied up. When were they like attacked in Monkey?
Monkey's always doing.
Don't remember how he got tied up.
Crazy stuff.
But she's like, oh, you're to let me fucking help you out, man. And she saves Monkey from his ropes.
Monkey was stealing snacks.
I literally don't remember.
That's probably what was happening.
But, like, so they get invited back to this old guy's house where he reveals that he's just got, like, all these fucking kids at the dinner table that are orphans that he's taken in, and his dream is to build them a nice theme park to hang out at.
It's a cool dream.
Sure, that's what the kids need, not, parents or...
Food?
Food. Well, they have food, I guess. So... This is where we suddenly learn his strangely complicated backstory and the backstory of the car.
His dad's Al Capone.
Al Calone. Totally not Al Capone. His dad was a famous gangster who was killed in the Model T. But, like, the last thing he said to him was, like, keep the car. So he's been protecting this Model T ever since. But in this scene, it's just been stolen by those other gangsters who broke out of prison that we heard about earlier. They show up, they just take the car, and then he gives this exposition dump. But there's a part where he's like, I care for that car like it's my child. And I was immediately like, yeah, it broke twice today. What are you talking about? No, you don't. And then as the scene goes on, he's like, I let the kids play with the car. They're all going to miss it. And I'm just like, letting the kids play with the car is not taking perfect, pristine care of it. You have clearly been punking this Model T the whole time. But Speed's just like, hey, there can't be that many Model Ts. We'll find it. We'll get it back.
How hard could it be?
And I believe they do.
Do they?
Because they end up getting it fixed up, I think. Well, meanwhile, back at home, everybody's just kind of talking about, oh, if only Big Brother was still around, that'd be sick. He'd be able to help with all this racing stuff Speed's getting into. And he's just, like, eavesdropping, like, hanging out outside of his old house, creeping on his family like a fucking weirdo. Racer X has definitely got some problems. I would definitely say he's neurodivergent. He's a little bit of a strange one. Maybe a little neurospicy, as they say up here in Washington. But he's determined to help his brother become a great racer, even if he has to do it in the most bizarre, backwards-ass way possible. But yeah, so basically their dad is trying to think of a business plan, and Trixie proposes, like, what if you let the first customer just totally free?
Yeah.
And then when people see what a good job you've done, they'll want to pay you for more. So, they offer to fix the Model T. I don't remember how they got it back. This is the same car, right?
Yeah, I don't remember either.
I literally don't remember how they got it back. But they get the Model T, they get it fixed up, and this immediately works. As soon as they have fixed the Model T, like, a bunch of people with Model Ts show up to pay for the service. So, the Trixie, your plan was a success. Meanwhile, the gangster tells us the story of how apparently hidden inside of, like, the engine bay of one of these Model Ts is some kind of treasure. And this old man who was dying in prison was just like, I'll never do anything with this information, so maybe you will. And he's like, hell yeah. So he's been, like, finding and looting Model Ts.
So the old man's a bad guy.
Trying to figure out, I guess so.
Because that's the old man, right?
Yeah. But, he tells the gangster man over there, like, he's just like, I'm old and useless, find a Model T with some treasure in it if you can. So this guy's trying to do that. This sequence is
I love these bikes.
Bonkers. The way this episode ends, it's leading into, like, a fairly generic action sequence. Like, some guys are chasing Speed on the highway in their cars, he's running them off the road and such. And then a helicopter shows up, and a ramp descends from the helicopter, and a just fleet, one after another, of motorcycles comes rushing down this ramp. And there's this sequence of like five the motorcycles, like first going down this ramp and then bouncing off of a rock face. I have a shot of this as well.
That was really strange. I didn't.
As the guys are like being whipped through the air, their motorcycles are one by one bouncing off this rock face and then like other surfaces. And the weirdest part about this is that it's drawn amazingly. Like every single frame of the motorcycle is consistently detailed. The perspective all makes sense. The animation feels smooth. There's like 7 different shots of these motorcycles. It felt like some serious mecha artwork, and I was just like, what the fuck did I just witness? That was like a real animation showcase just suddenly at the end of the episode of like the most weird car stunts I've ever seen. I'm blown away with it, especially like I've drawn the comparison to Wacky Racers, which came out like a year after this. And with that show, it was always extremely repetitive. Like every episode had the same plot. The backgrounds were always looping. They used like so many of the same animations. This show feels like it's always trying to be different, always trying to show me something new, and it's a lot more exciting than Wacky Racers because of it. So, yeah, enjoyed this one.
Speed Racer's good.
Solid speed. Oh yes, Steins Gate. The gating Steiner. This was an okay episode.
Yeah, I liked it.
Episode 5. This is a lot of, again, we're just kind of character building with Okabe and Christina, deepening their relationship.
Christina.
Getting us further into the mystery. One of my favorite things about this episode is that Ep 4 ends with the two of them like just trudging the IBM 5100 through the streets, and this one opens with them just like, I don't know, further down the block.
Well, I think they're almost home because this girl's here.
It's just like the implication that they were carrying it like all week. If you were watching this week to week, like they're just now getting to the station when you start the next episode. I think that's hilarious. But yeah. So they meet Weird Girl, who works for the TV place, self-described soldier, if you will. And when she hears the name Makise Kurisu, she goes into like a full-on battle pose.
Defense mode.
So clearly, wherever she's from, Kurisu's a problem. But she doesn't seem to be a problem now, so she kind of just doesn't do anything about it.
Wherever she's from, the future.
Mayushi is sitting on Daru's shirt in the middle of the floor.
Which
pretty
is
adorable.
Daru's dream.
It's very
Mayushi
cute.
is adorable. I love Mayushi.
She is pretty much the best. Doo-doo-doo. So, yeah, like, Christina comes back to the lab. Mayushi's excited. She's kind of asking Mayushi, like, why do you hang out with these guys? And her answer is, I am Okabe's hostage. And Kurisu's like, I'm going to call the police.
Who?
Christina.
Oh, thank you.
And then Mayushi's like, no, I choose to be a hostage. Yeah, most of this episode really is, like, about this sort of icy bonding between Christina and Ocarine, because they have a lot of the same interests. Like, obviously the science is a big part of it. They like the same games. They're part of the same sort of message boards, but their personalities don't clash. She tries to take herself seriously and is like, actually, like,
I mean, they don't mesh?
Yeah, and he's just like a weirdo, spaz, mad scientist man. So it's like they're trying to get over the things that they don't like about one another and become closer, based on their similarities. But it's difficult. Rocky communication. Ocarine meets with this strange girl again, and she's basically expo dumping about how she knows about the IBN, because he's like, why do you even heard of this thing? She's like, oh, I used to know somebody who was really obsessed with it, or knew a lot about it, rather, but he died years ago.
Or years from now.
Oh, I wonder who it is.
I bet it's him.
Pretty much every scene with this girl is like, if you have seen the show already, then you know what she's talking about. But like, all you really can get out of it at this point is like, ah, yeah, of course she would say that based on who she is. But like, I don't think it really means that much to have this stuff in the show this early. Like, nothing she says makes any fucking sense. Like, if you're just watching the show for the first time, you don't know who she is. It's a lot of foreshadowing. It's a lot of stuff that, like, if you remember all of this, then when you understand who she is later, you'll go, oh, that all makes sense now. But, like, I just don't think there's enough obvious relevance to the story in her actions for it to, like, give you much. Her scenes always just feel like weird and disconnected because you're like, well, what's the point of these? What's the point of this bitch? What is she doing here? What is she about? Takes a long time to find out. So it's not that I dislike those scenes. I just think that they only take on a real meaning on rewatch, and even then, it's not like a deep meaning. There's a part where Kurisu asks Okarin, how did you and Mayushi grow up in the same environment, but you ended up this socially awkward, or, you know, and end up this socially awkward, which he takes
Mayushi is incredibly socially awkward.
That's his response. It's like, yeah, she's always been weird, and she's like, I'm talking about you. But it is funny how, yeah, I do think Christina has, like, a bias towards Mayushi, just, like, seeing her as, like, oh, she's just a cute, harmless, innocent girl, you know? Like, what is strange about her? And Okabe's like, I don't know, man. Like, I know how to talk to people. Like, not that Mayushi doesn't know how to do that. She's you know, she says toot-to-doo and randomly, like, rants about Pokemon cards all the time. She's maybe just a little spurgy. Maybe they all are.
Oh, right. Christina and Okarin put on lab coats, and
Yeah.
Okabe just loses his shit. He goes, oh, we gotta stand back to back and put our hands in our pockets.
Yeah, this is where the bonding is really... Because he's just really excited about the fact that a lot of the stuff that he sees as his science image, she agrees with. Like, she wants to wear lab coats. She likes drinking Dr. Pepper. You know, they're playing games together in the lab. It's like, if not for, you know, differences in their opinions, they probably would be friends because they just like all the same things. And they look cool together. Look at them. You know, they can partake in the intellectual experience that is Dr. Pepper. This is the most interesting scene in the episode to me, is he gets really in her face yelling about stuff, and she literally starts crying. And she's really insecure about the fact that she started crying. Like, he's like, what's going on? And she's like, I definitely wasn't terrified by a guy screaming at me with a scary face. That totally didn't happen.
Face.
And, like, you can tell he kind of feels like he didn't intend to make her cry. He wasn't trying to. He's just a spaz. He's just over the top. He's just, you know, he's just that kind of guy. And, like, she even understands that enough to feel bad about being scared of him. She's like, intellectually, there's nothing to fear about this man, but he is much larger than me, and he was being loud, and it was scary. So, I don't know. It's interesting because it shows you her. I guess I think of Christina as somebody who she feels very self-empowered by her intelligence. She feels like, oh, I can talk anybody down. I can shut this guy down. He's an idiot. But, like, he is just like a big, strong dude, and she is a fucking tiny little stick of a person. Like, a small breeze would bend her in half type of a person. So it's interesting to see how, like, when the physical element gets involved, like, that's really the heart of her discomfort with Okabe, is that he's so touchy-feely, he's so, like, loud, he's so intense, and, like, she's reserved and quiet, and, like... But the thing is, I don't think she dislikes those things about him. Like, she acts like she does on some level, but it also seems like she kind of enjoys being dragged out of her shell and, like, made to participate. And she has different levels of complaints about the different things he does, where it's not always like, hey, don't touch me. Sometimes it is. sometimes it's more nuanced. And like this is a case of, again, she's the one feeling guilty. She's not mad at him for getting in her face and screaming. She's mad at herself for crying because he got in her face and screamed. I just think that's a really interesting character detail. So they finally crack into CERN and they find out what human is dead mismatch means, which is that a bunch of people got gooed into the past or something.
Time travel works, but you can't do it with a live thing because it's like cramming a too big of a thing into a too small of a hole.
It's like putting that sponge through that hand.
Which seems possible.
But it would squeeze all the gush out, and that's the issue, is that all the... She literally describes, like, what they're doing of, like, in scientific terms, which is, like, putting a 10 to the 9th power through a 10 to the 10th power thing. Square peg in a round hole. You're gonna knock the edges off, you know?
Pegging?
Famous last words. I wouldn't screw up so badly that they'd catch us just for looking at the report.
Too late.
And you don't have to screw up badly for them to be good at what they do. I guess that's it. That's Steins Gate episode 5. A lot of setup, a lot of character intimacy, a lot of dialogue. It was okay. I wouldn't say it covered a ton of new ground compared to episode 4.
I can't wait to learn what the fuck is going on here.
Yeah, at some point the other shoe's gonna drop and we'll be on a plot.
Is the shoe gonna be made of goo?
Goo shoe.
Goo shoe.
Alright, it's time for the last anime we're talking about tonight. Zom 100, The Bucket List of the Dead, episode 4. Yeah. So, I'm a little bit divided about this episode. I don't know how to feel. How do you feel about this one?
I don't like some of the things that happen in it, but I don't think it's a bad episode. I thought it was a good episode overall.
I think, like, in terms of telling this show's story and this character's story, like, it's strong. It's strongly constructed and written. I think it's problematic in the approach it takes to characterization. Yeah. This is the one I got the feminist critique of, if you couldn't tell. This is the one I'm going
I had forgotten about this, so I couldn't really figure out what that was about.
So, and I already...
By this, I mean I had forgotten that we were watching the show. I genuinely thought we were going to be done after Steins Gate.
This show, I already called it, like, a very bromantic show after the last episode. It's very much about, like, a guy who wants to do guy things with his guy friends and, like, a man's ambitions. And, like, you know, in the first episode, there was this whole subplot about, like, the beautiful girl at work that he was kind of pining after, but then she gets turned into a zombie. And I did think that character was pretty objectified in that episode. Like, she is literally just something he's pining after, just a vision of, you know, an idea of sex, basically, that gets taken away from him in kind of a cheap way. But ultimately, because it was the first episode, because it was just, like, it's just a setup for why he's going to move on from that type of thing, I kind of thought it's supposed to be shallow. Like, yeah, deliberately, this is who he's moving on from. And in the second episode, we introduced a character who clearly isn't shallow, who has some personality and a reason for him to care about her, and that he's going to be inspired to probably pursue romantically. That doesn't come up in this episode, though. What we get here is kind of a retread for him of the themes of the first episode, but where I think the women are even more objectified, even more kind of senselessly by the plot.
Well, they're not being objectified because they're women. They're being objectified because of their occupation.
Yes, because they are airline attendants. So anyway, this episode starts off, our bros have set up a pretty sweet living situation on the roof of a building. You can't even tell we're in the middle of Tokyo. He's been playing video games on a little monitor, you know, Hunk Man's been cooking. He's like, bro, if you're a man, you gotta know how to cook. How you gonna get the ladies? How you gonna fucking swoon them over? And
this is accurate.
It is true. And basically, the main guy's Akira, right? Or something like that.
Yes.
He's like, I've always been envious of you. You're popular. I want to know how to get with the ladies too. So like with this show, I really feel like the main character is who maybe the author sees himself as, who the audience is obviously meant to project onto. He's the everyman guy with a job. And the other dude is who that person wants to be. It's like whoever you are reading this manga, if you relate to the main character, there's a good chance that the kind of guy that you wish you were is this guy,
Well, women are my favorite guy.
But yeah, so I think he's almost like a Kamina type, but even more like in Gurren Lagann, Kamina was like inspired by Simon because he's like, you never give up. You always will find a way to figure out whatever how to make my bullshit make sense. And this guy feels that way even more intensely towards Akira because he is actually kind of a coward. In spite of how badass he is, he doesn't have the raw, insanity that Akira has that drives almost sociopathic madness that drives him through this zombie apocalypse.
Which is why everything that goes wrong in this episode goes wrong.
That is true. So they're riding around, and he's explaining that the reason he wanted to do comedy is that he loved watching comedy variety shows as a kid more than anything. So that's always what he wanted to do. Just a little bit of backstory, just fleshing out our guy here. There's another major aspect of this story is obviously the author likes zombie media, and particularly seems to like it for the fact that ridiculously over-the-top things can happen in zombie media.
Yeah.
The theme of zombies driving vehicles, therefore chaos,
big in this show.
It's pretty prevalent. In episode 2, we had that whole scene in the convenience store, which of course we see again in this episode.
Yeah, at this point it's like I don't think anyone else is driving. I think they might all be gone.
And yeah, this episode has a pretty lengthy sequence of like a gas tanker driven by a zombie coming into contact with a zombie firefighter,
but he's holding a hose full of fire.
Yeah, his hose is shooting fire for some reason, but it blows up the gas tanker, and then the zombie's head from the explosion rockets off and hits Hunk Guy in the face. That was pretty funny. But yeah, it's just this long ass action sequence, just for the hell of it. Why not? Hey, zombie action, cool. So they find themselves inside of a
department store.
Yeah, the department store, and what do you know? There's 3 incredibly hot chicks and a gloomy businessman in there.
Who's going insane the whole time.
And the way this shot, they pan up on these girls, and I was like, wow, they really wanted you to know, hey, hot chicks.
Yeah.
The outfits all look expensive. They've all got the earrings. They've all got the long legs.
Gams, I believe is the
gams. Term. So yeah, you walk in, it's just like, whoa, 3 hot chicks. I wonder what's gonna happen here, since our boys were talking about getting laid earlier in the episode, right?
More specifically, whining and dining flight attendants.
Yeah. So we'll get to that in a moment. They're all hanging out. They're figuring out what they're going to do in their situation. This girl's just like, I need to get drunk. And quickly they all start drinking.
So I have this is them realizing they're flight attendants. At one point, Akira chugs an entire bottle of tequila through his nose.
Oh, yeah.
And that made me physically uncomfortable.
What do they describe it as? Gargling?
Snorting.
Snorting. Yeah, he snorts tequila. I don't know why he did that. That's fucked up. So, alright. 10 years ago, I flew to the Philippines, and on my layover, we stopped in Japan. I was only in Japan for maybe 2 hours at the Nagoya airport. I saw a lot of Japanese flight attendants walking around. Every single one of them was stunningly gorgeous. Just all relatively young, really beautiful women. And I was like, God damn, the stereotype is real. So I understand why this guy has always dreamed of whining and dining a female flight attendant. The thing is that, like, I mean, this is just, it's openly fetishistic, right? Like, this is the guy's fetish. They happen to meet that type of woman. And the push and pull of the scene is interesting because it is kind of, it's kind of making fun of him for where his head is at through all of this. But at the same time, the way it treats these girl characters, I mean, it's just not very kind to them. So, you know, basically, Akira tries talking to the one girl, and his icebreaker is, so do you have a boyfriend? And she's like, why are you asking me this right now? And he's like, I fucked up. Which I do think is funny, because it's such an obvious fuck up. Meanwhile, Hunk Man has already developed perfect chemistry with this girl. They talked about their hometown. They're touching fingers. They're completely intimate with each other. He's just like, fuck, I'm getting left behind. I can't believe it. So, you're trying to touch fingers with me?
I was trying to touch fingers with you.
Akira's throwing up in the bathroom, and this girl comes in to try to touch his back. And he's like, oh, shit. Maybe she likes me. Maybe I still got a shot. So,
and she has this whole speech where basically she's like, no, my boyfriend's definitely out there, and he's definitely still alive. Yeah. But I just felt bad for you, so I wanted to come and make sure you're all right. He's like, wow, maybe there is hope for
he's like, yeah, maybe I'm not going to get laid, but at least this girl is really nice and actually a decent person. So Hunk,
in the background, the mean girl of the flight attendants has gotten eaten by that businessman who was going insane.
Hunk Man and Miki, the girl who he was talking to, they go upstairs because they're beds banging up there. So they fuck. She orders another round, and while they're fucking a second time, the other girl who's drunk gets bit by the businessman. And this is right after she gives like a long speech about all the problems with being a flight attendant. Like, she gives her own little, this is all the reasons that we're being exploited and our job's not as glamorous as everybody thinks it is. And then she gets bit by the zombie. This is kind of where it started to be like a little ish for me, because like he comes downstairs with Maki and she immediately gets her face eaten off. And this is the expression and pose he's making while this happens in dialogue. Seriously? Maki?
Like, he sees the zombie and everything. He could have stopped this. Literally 5 seconds after this, he kills this zombie.
It's presented almost comedically, and it's just kind of like, okay, like, I get that the point of this character was just to show us that this guy bangs. But that's literally it. Like, she's just the cute, slutty girl that this guy scored with, and now she's gone. Her face is eaten off. Like, it's such a brutal way to go. Last it says almost comedically, isn't the whole show a comedy? Kind of, but it also has a lot of dramatic moments where it tries to be sentimental. And it's really hard to... Like, I don't know, this just isn't funny to me. Like, the presentation of it is like it's supposed to be funny, but it's not really funny. Like, the joke is just that they were banging and now she's getting her face eaten. But, like, I mean, I guess maybe it would have been funnier to me if it were played more seriously. Maybe it would be shocking if it were played more violently. It just came off kind of like... like, oh, okay, I guess this dead
is happening now.
He doesn't seem that fazed by it. Like, well, and that's the thing. He kills the zombie right after this, and then he's like guilty. He's like, oh, I'm so sorry I killed you, but like he just doesn't say anything about the girl he just slept with. Like, this is it. This is his full reaction. She's gone now. Not mentioned again. Non-entity. No real feelings about that. Just, oh well, you know.
Scumbag.
Pump and dump. So yeah. Continuing from there, this girl gives her whole dramatic spiel. This also kind of annoyed me.
Oh, she's doing so. She has been bitten by this at this point, and this is another example. So this is the girl with
No, this is
Akira.
this is right before she gets
Oh well,
bitten. This is like
whatever.
seconds before she's about to get
So
bitten.
Akira and her are just like sitting on some stairs, and the businessman zombie like sneaks up behind them. There's like a hallway. You would have heard him. Come
Yeah.
on, guys.
Uh, she gives this whole thing about how she had like wanted to be a waitress and stuff, or not a waitress,
Flight
a
attendant.
flight
Because
attendant.
she met a flight attendant when
And
she
like,
was young.
people like the job's just not always cracked up to be. And one day, some mean guy, he called us a bunch of flying waitresses.
That
And
is
that's
kind
such
of what they are.
and like the Akira's like, oh, that's such an awful thing to say. And I'm like, what's wrong with being a waitress? Like, they're literally just dunking on waitress as an occupation here out of hand for no reason. Like, how dare they call us flying waitresses? Like, you got something to say about being a waitress? A very common occupation, pays somewhat decently, and like, maybe this is supposed to make me not like her. Like, maybe part of the because it doesn't seem that way because it doesn't have that effect on Akira. He's like sympathetic. He's just like, oh yeah, that sucks, and I'm like, no, you're really like entitled, like you got this cool ass job that you're whining about. And then she kind of comes to this conclusion too. After she gets bitten, she's like, you know what? I remember why I wanted to be a flight attendant. It's because one time a flight attendant patted me on the back when I was nervous, and it made me want to be one like that. And I do love my job, and I am okay with myself. And then she dies about it. So, I don't know. I guess this is just a setup for her to realize that she is being, like, ridiculous. But damn, like, why you gotta slag on waitresses like that? But yeah, she zombos out. And so this, like...
But they got the TV, which was the whole point they were at that store in the first place. They wanted a big screen TV.
It's very much a case of, like, it's not that the women don't come off as believable characters at all. Like, they're not completely one-dimensional. There's, like, the one girl's got kind of a backstory. The one's, like, a drunk, and the others, I don't know, they're very one-dimensional. I don't know what I'm trying to say. The women... The three women that exist in this episode are purely vehicles to drive the development of the two guys who are the main characters. All summarized by this line where Buff Guy just says, I think I've been traumatized by flight attendants.
True.
Yeah. You know what happened to the flight attendants? They're dead.
It's pretty traumatizing of them. Should have thought about that and what it would do to these guys.
And Akira, he's really, he's all sad and upset. He's playing on his big widescreen TV, the same video games he was before. He's not happy about it. But then, you know what? He decides, I'm going to be inspired by this instead of upset about it. And he's like, I'm going to add to my list, remember my childhood dream. Again, I didn't hate this episode. I liked it. I thought it was entertaining.
I just wish the girls didn't die. That's pretty much it.
And in such a, like...
It felt lazy.
Yeah, they died in such a ruthless way, but without, like, earning it. Like, what if this had been a two-parter where we got to know the characters even better, and then when they died, it was, like, really dramatic? Or...
Especially because the show is going on hiatus this week.
Oh yeah, we're not gonna get another episode, I guess, coming soon, so that's unfortunate. Yeah, I guess trashy is the word I would use. It was just a little bit trashy. Again, I don't hate it. Not a huge issue, but it's why it's not my favorite. It's still way better than Mushoku Tensei's level of trashiness and total lack of, like, at least this show, even if the way it portrays sex and like relationships is incredibly like generic and just commonplace, at least it like makes sense and is based in reality, whereas Mushoku Tensei is just like making stuff up. Alright, that's it for anime this week. This episode probably won't be edited very quickly. The last two haven't been. I'm sorry. I really want to get this channel back into the full swing of being totally active and accurate to the intentions of its makeup. But we got a lot of fucking work for at least a few more weeks. So look forward to the next episode here on the live page. All right. Anime forever?
Anime forever.
Good night, y'all.
Good night, good morning, good afternoon.